Runi, you may start, please.
Good morning, everyone. This is a privilege for me to be a part of such a wonderful session. And I welcome all of you on behalf of ASMA and BIMTECH to the ASMA HR and HE Forum 2021. As you all know, that the post and the we're talking about COVID, and the context of education and work has changed immensely. So it's time now to sit together, and all the brain and all the minds behind the education policy and everything, we all need to come together. And it's a winter morning in Delhi. I think I'm very, very honored to be in the presence of such warm people and illuminated by their aura, the wisdom. So welcome to ASMA HR and Higher Education Forum 2021, powered by BIMTECH, Birla Institute of Management Technology, Greater Noida, on the theme Exploring Future of Education and Work. ASMA HR in Higher Education Leadership Forum 2021 on the theme Exploring Future of Education and Work is a virtual event which aims at providing a forum to discuss some very key issues, and people from higher education will be deliberating all through the next few hours on very pressing issues of role of digital technology, on what is the future of work and how is it going to be like, what are the jobs of the future, and a number of such anxieties that exist around academia as well as the industry, because we are grooming and churning professionals for the work world, which is changing so much and transforming so much. BIMTECH, as you all know, is a B school in Greater Noida, and we, in the existence of more than 3 decades, have been led by our founders from the Birla family, and we have known that education is for social good. All our programs across the decades have been totally up to the standards of the industry and has been very futuristic. So under the leadership of our director, Dr. Harivansh Chaturvedi ji, we have always found ourselves at the right time, at the right place. And with the advice of people like all those who are present here today, we've been bringing in the best in the education and have been rated very highly by the accreditation bodies. Dear attendees, it's very, very wonderful session across the day. So don't miss out on any of that. And we are joined by this very, very dynamic ASMA team. And I would like to invite Mr. Chandan to take over from here and tell us more about the HR and Higher Education Forum as well as ASMA.
Yes. Thanks, Ms. Saloni. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of ASMA, a sort of adoption of social media in academia, a learning and leading community in academia, I, Chandan Anand, the Vice President of InnoServ Group, welcome you all in today's important and exciting deliberation. It's a very important day for us. We feel very privileged and honored to host an event like this. Let me invite your attention for 2 minutes. I feel extremely proud to brief about 2 growing and leading communities of the country, ASMA and Digital HR. By now, ASMA has hosted more than hundreds of virtual events and webinars, every session being unique and niche in its own way. Thus, passionately delivered many successful series of deliberations. With 7 rich years of legacy, ASMA has grown with an outreach of over 1 lakh community members, connecting academia, corporate, and government, which comprising of over 500 private universities, deemed universities, state and open universities, more than 20,000 higher education institutes comprising of B schools, technical and skill education institutes, over 25,000 schools and preschools, edtech companies, startups, and whatnot. We are continuously serving them via various facets of knowledge sharing platform, that is ASMA portal, ASMA TV, ASMA webinar, events, conferences, ASMA awards, MDPs, FDPs, website development, social media enhancement, newsletters, and a Write for Us column, inviting the applications and innovations, articles, and any good happenings and best practices which is in your premises. Do share with us. Our editorial team will evaluate it and will publish that on our social media platforms. Coming on to the digital HR. Under the umbrella of InnoServ Group comes another leading community of HR professionals, digital HR, having a community outreach of 80,000 HR professionals. Through digital transformations and various facets like webinars, virtual events, training sessions, workshops, master classes, and certification program, and other HR services, we are helping the HR professionals learn, understand, and use digital technology to drive business objectives in HR. Among its many applications, one of the most focus area we have identified at digital HR is digital employer branding, as it is tremendous impact on the entire value chain. Our mission is to accelerate this movement of community outreach, knowledge sharing, and exploring collaboration opportunities. The journey becomes much easier with your support, encouragement, and blessings. We are excited to announce yet another niche and unique event, HR and Higher Education Forum 2021, powered by BIMTECH, Birla Institute of Management and Technology, Knowledge Partner, GTT, Global Talent Track, Engagement Partner, FMA Digital, AI Partner, ORAI, HR Community Partner, Digital HR. We are really thankful and glad to have the support and association from our partners, creating the opportunities of collaborations between corporate and academia. Thank you. Over to you, Saloni.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chandananand. You just heard the Vice President of InnoServ Group, and just imagine, the kind of things they do. I'm excited. I think I've been associated with ASMA since a long time, and whatever little that I am on social media is, because of them and the team of Rahul and everybody. I've seen them adding new dimensions, and it's amazing. So I'm really looking forward to know more, and I would now like to invite Mr. Gopalakrishnan Ramachandran, the chairman of InnoServ Group, to deliver the welcome address. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, you're mute.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and a very warm welcome on this wonderful morning to Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, to Dr. Krishnan, more importantly to Dr. Maitri of IIM Nagpur, as well as to Dr. Chaturvedi and other eminent speakers in the panel as the day goes by. I would only be not doing justice if I were not commenting a word or two on this wonderful topic of the future of education and the future of work in a changed environment. And before I leave the platform open to the eminent speakers, I would like to share a few thoughts, maybe some pointers of what I feel so passionately about the future of education. and the future work. If one were to look at it very carefully, the education landscape has changed phenomenally. We can be very clear in saying that the pandemic contributed to it positively. Maybe COVID positive is not a good word, but certainly digital positive is a great word. I honestly feel that the way people learn, the way people approach education has changed drastically and dramatically, possibly forever. In my opinion, it's just a case where no longer labels matter. No longer mere degrees will be doing the work that one thought it would be doing. And mere labels will not define an individual. Education has changed forever. Students are going to be in a questioning mode. A professor cannot come to a class and say, let me finish my lecture before you can ask a question. The students are well informed. They are having the information at the tips of the finger. Virtually the mobile phone is in their palms all the time, 24/7, more than anyone else with them. It's their companion. And the professor has to be answering questions when he or she is interrupted midway through his lecture. They've already done the homework. They would like to question, they'd like to have answers, they'd like to have solutions, and they are the new age digi-natives or digital natives, and they are more or less going to become the gig workers of tomorrow. It is no longer going to be a case that you go to the class, sit in front of a guru, the guru is facing all the students in the front rows, teaching in a Guru Siksha Parampara, and saying that, hey, listen to me, and I am telling you something. It's a gospel, it's a truth, it's a Bible. You take it, accept it, absorb it, learn it by rote, keep it in your system, and apply it mechanically, disciplined without innovation, not having breakthrough approaches, no out-of-box thinking, just doing what you're told to do. It's not a machine that is producing mass educated illiterates. No longer that will work. The new age educated student is going to be one who is equipped with skill sets that are digital in nature, and they're going to be more or less prepared for the future, and they'll be part of the change, and they'll also be changing the future. That's the new age student. He questions the teacher answers the student, the teacher and the student together explore new ideas, new innovations, and knowledge impacting and solutions is what the teacher is supposed to give the student. All said and done, the teacher now has become a coach and a mentor to the student. The day has come when teaching is not in classrooms. It may just be on the staircases where the students sit with a laptop and start exchanging ideas. They have a 360 degree, the teacher, the student, the peer group, and people below them and above them, all in discussions, informed debates, rationalized discussions, coming to conclusions which are reasoned and scientific. That's a new age. That's a gig worker. It's a gig economy. And you're going to have gig projects, and you're going to have disruptions all the way as part of the student learning process. According to me, it will be unending learning, or what I call as lifelong learning, because you're going to be a student of education throughout your life from the start to the end, not by just mechanically understanding concepts, but by implementing it. And that's the student of the future we need to respect. And maybe a stage has come when youngsters are going to be training the adults. I had the mortification, honestly, when for the first time when I was running a computer training company, and I think Ganesh would attest to it, he was also involved in that. I found that youngsters used to come and teach us what is to be doing in Microsoft packages or Oracle platforms and IBM. How do you learn those techniques? And elders used to come from the corporate world to learn from youngsters who are 20, 21-year-old. The same is happening today. And this trend, I found it when I set up my fitness industry. I didn't know the F of fitness. And when I started learning it, I was told how to run in a treadmill by a 20-year-old. He was my guru. And he told me, hey, you're not doing, buddy. You're not good at your work. You're not able to run on the treadmill at a speed of 4. You're puking. You better get your stamina on. I looked at him. I wanted to tell him, hey, I'm an elderly guy. I'm 40 plus. Please give me respect. Then when I looked at him, he said, listen, I'm your teacher. I learned it. Then he said, I want to see you, dude, getting into a speed of 13 quicker than ever before. And that's something which taught me no longer age defines knowledge or age creates a teacher. It cannot be needless hierarchy, and it has to be a case where knowledge is a defining factor. And that's where my education also started in a very big way 20 years ago. And I continue to be a student of education as I speak. Coming to the last point, work. What are we talking about the future of work? I remember very clearly that the future of work, if I see it today, has radically changed. During my father's days, it was going to the office was work. I repeat, going to the office was work. Today, what you do is work. I remember that my uncle, when he was going to the office, he used to say that the factory whistle is there, the wailing of the siren indicates that my time has started. And again, the beat of the siren, he was waiting at 6 o'clock to get back home. He said, I have finished my work. I asked him, what did you do? He said, I was in the office, mind you. Huh? He never told me what he did. He was in an assembly plant. He said, I was in the office from morning 6 to my shift when it ended at 2. So please remember that I was working. So one day when my uncle and me were talking, I told him that you have been in this work for about 38 years as a worker and a foreman. Can I say with due humility that you repeated 1 year 38 times? He got very upset with me. He said, are you telling me I'm a failure? I worked religiously for 38 years on the same job. Do you know that I'm an expert in that job and the spare parts and how to create it? I told him, but you repeated it 38 times. You could have done something else. So he told me, listen, you're too young to talk that. Respect the age and never talk like this ever again. I said, sorry, sir, but I still hold on to my point. Today, when I look back, I feel you bring in the market. It is the innovative thinking that impacts on solutions. It's a way you create something new, a paradigm shift, because there is going to be a manager-less economy like a driver-less car. It's going to be a manager-less companies like you have countries where you are really going to have transportation where no human intervention is there. It's going to be a reality. The Hyperloop is coming in. People are going to space and coming back in, say, about 7 hours or 8 hours. You never know what else is going to happen. Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos seem to be doing the unthinkable after Steve Jobs started it. I feel work, the definition has changed completely. We need to understand that the future is full of changes, and change will be an inspiring constant. I'm very, very excited to be part of this actually important seminar for me, because when I think about the future of work and education, and I see the list of stars that I have today, the galaxy of stars are going to be talking and exchanging ideas with all of you, all that I can tell you is that listen, 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 have takeaways, and implement with rigidity and collective discipline. You guys are going to be a winner after today's session. Trust me, it's going to be enjoyable. Thank you so much. And once again, a warm welcome to all the delegates and all the speakers for this wonderful session. Thank you so much. Each one of you have a great day.
Okay, that's fantastic, sir. And you truly, it's true. I mean, we are teachers and the whole scenario in our classrooms have changed. We no more teachers. And great that we remain this way, otherwise we'll soon be rejected. And I remember the anxieties people had because everybody thought that we are going online and there'll be formal education, question marks on it. And I remember just when the country was trying to get a grip on the situation and COVID had hit in March, me, and the director, we had an interview recorded. And I remember having heard from him all these things that you said today. He was already envisioning the transformation in our classrooms and how the roles of the teachers would change. And that's true. Students are learning from everywhere. There isn't any need for a formal education. The government and everybody else, we're talking about skills. So thank you so much. And just yesterday on LinkedIn, I noticed that NSDC posted about how the enrollment in their certification was like 2000% more during the last year. So that's how the world is. Now everybody can become a skilled expert in something, and it's a DIY generation we are tackling with do it yourself. They are doing it themselves. So our roles have to change and we have to look inwards as a faculty. So I think it's time now to bring in Chandan and ask him what's next, Chandan, in this leadership forum, because we have amazing set of chancellors, vice chancellors, directors, people who are running the whole show in the country when it comes to higher education. So what's there next, Chandan?
Yes. Yes, Saloni, thank you for summarizing the talk of GR. So after such a powerful opening speech and welcome address by GR, let me have the honors and privilege to introduce the keynote speakers of the day, two distinguished visionary leaders in the world of corporate and academia with incredible success stories and exemplary track record in their respective fields, having specialties of leading teams and building businesses. Let me introduce the first gentleman of the day with over 30 years of rich experience in industry, including 25 years of experience as CEO of Aptech and Gensa Technology. He's having a master's degree in industrial engineering from NITI Mumbai and a PhD from IIT Mumbai and AMP from Harvard Business School. He has received the Distinguished Alumnus Award of IIT Mumbai and NITI and has been recognized by EY and Asia Pacific HR Forum for excellence in technology, entrepreneurship, and people-centric leadership. He has been elected to serve the SBI, the largest public sector bank, as board of directors. He's the chairman and board of director of Social Venture Partners India and Pune City Connect. He has led innovation and knowledge management initiative nationally for CII and NASSCOM and has been chairman of NASSCOM and NASSCOM Foundation. Case studies of this gentleman and Gensa has been developed and taught at Harvard Business School. Let me please introduce and invite Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, Executive Chairman and Founder, F5 World. Welcome, Dr. Ganesh Natarajan.
Very much.
Now,
yeah, go ahead.
Let me introduce very eminent personalities in the field of academia. He is holding a leadership position in one of the most reputed and of a reputed of institute, IIM Bangalore, is an author, columnist, and professor of management whose focus is on strategies, innovation, and education. He has worked at IIM Bangalore, where he held the Jamuna Raghavan Chair in Entrepreneurship from 2007 to 2010. After serving 5 years stint as the director of IIM Indore, he returned to IIM Bangalore and is currently director IIMB and professor of strategies there. He was educated at IIT Kanpur, Stanford Universities, and IIM Ahmedabad. He is an author of book 8 Steps of Innovation, Going from Jugaad to Excellence. Won the Best Book Award for 2013-14 from Indian Society of Training and Development. His earlier book, From Jugaad to Systematic Innovation, The Challenge of India, proposed a blueprint and how India can enhance its innovation output. He is listed in the Thinkers 50 India list of most influential management thinkers from India. May we please welcome Dr. Rishikesh Krishnan, Director, IIM Bangalore. Welcome, Dr. Rishikesh Krishnan. Over to you, GR sir and Krishnan sir.
Okay, thank you very much, and pleasure to be here. And I'm a great fan of the InnoServ group because I think Rahul and his team, and of course GR under GR's leadership, done really excellent work as far as the whole education, media, new ideas are concerned. And I think that's the future. For me, it's a privilege to kind of host this conversation with Professor Krishnan, because Rishi and I know each other for a very long time. And we share three passions. One, of course, is education. The second is social activity, and Rishi has been associated with social venture partners for a long time. And third, of course, is the whole area of innovation. And I think what we will try and do, and I think GR teed it off very well in the session when he talked about the changes that we are seeing. And if you really look around you, even this week, you have seen some fundamental. I just thought I will mention before starting the future of work and jobs discussion. I mean, if you look at what happened 4 years ago, when President Trump was sworn into America, I mean, it's a negative form of innovation, because he kind of changed the concept of how a president should talk, walk, behave, went to Asia to meet the North Korean head, has taken on China like nobody else has done before, and of course made huge mistakes. Innovators also make mistakes, and probably very deservedly has been booted out as president of the US, and Joe Biden took over yesterday. On a more positive note, if you look at what happened 2 days ago, most of you will be fans of cricket, who isn't in India. And I still remember getting up on the 5th day of the 4th test and exchanging messages with my good friend in Pune, the actor Amol Palekar. And I told Amol, boss, we have to somehow hold on and do a draw. So Pujara and Rahane are going to be very important for this. And Amol, who's 10 years older than me, sent me a WhatsApp message back, which I will preserve, saying, Ganesh, you're becoming too old here. This is the new India. New India will go for a win. Nobody plays for a draw. And then he called me up at 1:30 and said, see, I told you so. You don't understand this country. So I think with all the challenges come new opportunity. We are all worried about, okay, if India declines at 8 to 10% in GDP this year, what happens to people? What happens to jobs? Here is China continuing to grow at 2% in 2020. But I think what is important is to understand that what has been there in the past, what is even there at present, and what is there in the future is going to be completely different. So what we're going to do, Rishi and I, is to really talk a little bit about this. We'll really touch upon three themes. The future of work itself. I mean, how will work be constructed going forward? We'll talk a little bit about the future of education, which means how do young people have to respond in terms of careers, in terms of learning, etc., which I'm sure the next panel is also going to touch upon in great detail. And then, of course, we'll talk a little bit about leadership, saying that if we have to lead as a country, as business schools, as students whom we are training to be leaders of the new India, or the Naya India as we call it, how do we create the Rishabh Pants of the future in every walk of life? So I think that's really what we'll do. So I'm going to start by Rishi asking you the first question, saying that, look, so what do you think? How is work going to roll out in front of our eyes over the next 3-4 years? What kind of changes, what kind of similarities do you see going forward?
So as you know, Ganesh, historically, a lot of development in the field of business and industry has been focused on increasing efficiency. This has been the theme of a lot that we have seen right since the Industrial Revolution. And in one way, many of the changes we are seeing now are just a continuation of that trend, where we are looking at improving efficiency, productivity, and thereby reducing cost and so on. So particularly if you look at some of the new technologies like AI, which are transforming many businesses, one aspect of their transformation is what I just mentioned, which is on the efficiency side. But there's another element to all this, which is the ability to customize better, the ability to enable people to get what they want more easily at lower cost, makes the whole service concept very different. Personalization becomes much easier and so on. So given this context, what many people are arguing is that we need to look beyond just the efficiency dimensions, and we need to look at what is the augmentation or what is the additional benefits which will come from all these new technologies. And human beings have a huge role to play in making those additional benefits actually happen. So if you just look at the future of work, I think broadly, most people are agreed on a few trends. One is that automation will increase. Second is in the short term, number of jobs may come down. In the longer term, number of jobs will probably bounce back, though with a different requirement of skill sets. And there's going to be a kind of change in the nature of the kind of contribution human beings will ideally need to make, in the sense that they will need to augment and complement what machines can do, because what is most efficient for machines to do will probably be done by machines. But there's a whole element of creativity and everything else, imagination, customization, understanding user needs, things like that, which human beings can do in a very unique and distinctive way compared to machines. And that's going to be the distinctive area for human beings going forward.
So Rishi, can I just maybe touch upon my favorite theme, and of course, something that you know very well, which is really the influence of digital technologies. I mean, we're all aware of digital, and every student today knows about cloud computing and the social network and IoT and augmented reality and virtual reality. And yesterday I was speaking to the Rotary Club in Pune, and people said, can you just demystify why should we even care about digital? And I want to touch upon that topic and get your views also. When I see digital, I mean, as a person who was trained to be a mechanical and industrial engineer and literally stumbled onto technology by accident, I always find that we have to understand the real value of these things. We all know that COVID has pulled down expectations, because obviously it has created havoc on lives. And as Prime Minister Modi says, Jaan and Jahan are both in danger. I think GR mentioned that when he talked about people becoming obsolete. And what is really happening today is the positive side. I mean, against the COVID pull, I call it the digital push. Digital is pushing us in ways that we have hardly imagined. I mean, today, if you look at a typical customer, I mean, customers don't really need to go to a store. So even if you look at the Apple store or the new cars, I mean, everything is experience is what you will want physically. And as you rightly mentioned, the combination of physical and digital, cyber and physical, I think that's really what we're seeing happening. And when I was doing research on digital, I found that, look, in the early days, I mean, digital was all about Google and Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. And we all have these cliches saying that, look, they own no assets, but they still add tremendous value to their shareholders by just providing the right service or product at the right place at the right time, which is what Amazon and Alibaba do, for instance. But now it's moved beyond that to the experience economy. I mean, today, many of us or most of us don't go to movie theaters, A, because of COVID, and because the sheer convenience of an Amazon Prime or a Netflix is so much faster. So creating personalized experiences has been one big contribution of digital. And I'm now finding, and some of us are doing research on this, that the future is not even about cost or experiences. It's about what they call the platform economy. And what's the platform economy? I mean, if you look at companies like Airbnb, or let's say Oyo Rooms here, or take companies like Uber or Ola, they're actually building platforms by which multiple users can use the same resource. I mean, I remember talking to an American friend of mine in New York 10 years ago, and he was saying that, look, if somebody tells me that I will get up in the morning, not use my own car, get into a car with a driver I've never seen in my life, and then go into a new city and go stay with somebody who's renting out a room rather than a 5-star Hilton or a Marriott, I would have thought he's joking. But today there's a no. And that's because of the platform economy, where every unutilized piece of material can be scaled. I mean, I'm sure many of you in India may have heard of a company called Rivigo. And Rivigo actually was set up 5 years ago by 2 McKinsey consultants. And these guys are just saying that, look, I mean, why should we assume that if you're sending materials across the highways in trucks, one truck driver will sit in that truck and drive it all the way from Bangalore to Delhi? So they're saying, let's split the journey into maybe 300-kilometer stretches, and the same driver can take it for 300 kilometers and then come back home and sleep at night. And it's just such a simple idea, but that innovation led to a whole technology-based digital platform, which was actually amazing. So question I have for you, Rishi, is just to, maybe you know digital as well, and probably more than I do, but where do you think it's going to drive us? You mentioned words like AI and et cetera, but how does one, as a business school student, as many professors and academic institutions head who are this, human resource heads, how do we make sense out of what digital will do to our lives? And how do you think over the next 3-4 years, it's going to change the way we work?
Yeah, so let me just try to answer this question wearing my strategy hat. So wearing my strategy hat, I think there are both huge opportunities as well as significant challenges in the move to the platform economy. The opportunity is very clear that particularly in a country like India, where there are opportunities for creating many new platforms. And even in those businesses where global platforms exist, there's an opportunity to create an India-specific platform. So you consider maybe something like Flipkart in competition with, say, somebody like Amazon. And similar opportunities exist in other platform businesses as well. But I think there's also a challenge at the same time. The challenge is that not every company can be a platform company. And therefore, what is the right strategy for those companies which will not be able to build and control platforms? We generally know that in these network economy and platform kind of businesses, there tends to be a winner-take-all logic, or at most 2 or 3 significant platforms. You can see that across any business, whether you look at taxis, whether you look at e-commerce, anything that you take. So what are the other businesses going to do? Of course, one thing is, of course, that you can continue to be a producer or a supplier, and you could be selling your products or services through these different platform businesses. And that will require your own approach to digital, which will include integration with the platforms, integration with customers to understand their needs better, and so on. I think one of the challenges that I foresee is definitely what do companies who are unable to either, position themselves as a platform or have a very significant distinctive capability or advantage, which enables them to have some amount of, say with the platform. Otherwise, the platforms just become extremely powerful and tend to dominate the businesses therein. So particularly in a country like India, where we have vast number of small businesses, and I think there are interesting ideas emerging. I mean, for example, we've been hearing about how Jio wants to create a e-commerce and a retail platform which integrates the Kirana stores into their platform. So maintaining the entity of the Kirana store and its place in the local neighborhood, but at the same time trying to give the Kirana store the benefits of the network. So I think interesting ideas like that are what I'm really hoping to see in India, which will preserve some of our social fabric and the other connections that we have, and at the same time take advantage of the network and platform effects.
I think that's a great point, Rishi, you're making, because you're absolutely right, because we cannot, and as even in AI, that's what we've been arguing, that you could use AI for completely autonomous work, but India does not want that. But I think when you look at artificial intelligence for augmenting or assisting work, so I think those are the kind of, I would say, incremental innovations that we probably need, rather than something which completely disrupts. So let me move quickly to the second point, which is the future of jobs. And my favorite author nowadays is Yuval Noah Harari. I'm sure most of you have read Sapiens, though of course my favorite book is not Sapiens, but it's Homo Deus, the second book he wrote. And if some of you haven't read Harari, the Sapiens is about the last 2000 years, and he really articulates history extremely well. But the second one is what he calls the history of the next 100 years. Almost like an oxymoron, saying, what do you mean by history of the next 100 years? But one or two interesting points that Professor Harari makes is that every 15 years or maybe less, we will have to completely change our interests, our knowledge, our skills, our capabilities. You're seeing it in front of us. Today, I don't want to name it, but in cities like Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, I think about 8,000 people, or maybe more, some people say 30,000, in the technology industry, IT industry, all very well educated, maybe IIT, maybe IIMs, etc. But they're in their mid-40s and they're all in danger of losing their jobs. Why is that? Primarily because they're all in salary levels of maybe 70 lakhs to 1.5 crores. And companies are saying, these guys haven't really learned anything, have they? They were project managers when they were 27, and they're just still managing maybe larger projects. And an evil thought comes to the CEO's mind, saying, why don't I just get rid of them and go to Professor Krishnan and recruit 5 bright guys from IIM Bangalore? They have the same capability. Maybe I can pay them 25 lakhs, and I'm saying 50 lakhs salary. Now, this can happen, and I know Uma in the next session is going to talk about what skills you need to avoid being fired when you're 45. But the question I'm asking, and the point I'm making is, what Harari says is you better refresh yourself. And he talks very nicely about a truck driver in America who will suddenly find that whether Tesla automates everything else or not, it'll automate the trucks because the highway There's nothing you have to do except sleep at the wheel. So you don't need truck drivers in the future. As somebody mentioned Hyperloop, I think GR mentioned it. I mean, you don't even need train drivers. So he talks about the mythical truck driver who then decides, I will become a yoga teacher. And 10 years later, when he begins to start learning and be ready for yoga, he says, yoga has now been taken over by robotics and artificial intelligence. I mean, why do you need a contortionist as a yoga teacher when you can have a robot in front of you called Sophia who's teaching you yoga? So that's his point, that you got to keep staying ahead of the curve. And I mean, the reality is IIM Bangalore is probably one of the best business schools in the world. But whether it's an IIM Bangalore or a BIMTECH or anybody else, how do we ever train students when they are 22 to 24? And what do we train them in to create a kind of capability to manage these maybe 3-4 completely different skill changes that they will have to do in the next maybe 20-30 years of your career? Any thoughts on that, Rishi? What is the education that you can give to make people prepared for the reality?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ganesh. Of course, this trend which you described is not totally new. I remember some years ago when I made one of my visits to the US, I was trying to catch up with all my IIT batchmates. And I found quite a few of them were saying they were consultants, they were working with startups, etc. They were not very specific about what actually they were doing. And then when I kind of probed a little further, I found many of them really didn't have their original jobs anymore. And these are all very, very smart technology guys, all from IIT and done extremely well in the first 15, 20 years of their careers. But they kind of reached a stage where perhaps the industry had moved on, technology had changed, and the companies didn't really need their services anymore. So I think the problem is real. In India, we are seeing that with a little lag, I feel. But you're absolutely right. We are beginning to see that challenge in India as well. So, of course, there are a lot of cliched answers to your question. I think one is, of course, the great continuous learning, lifelong learning, all that stuff that we've all been talking about for many years. And it's beginning to happen, I think, more than before. I certainly see quite a few people in their 40s signing up for Coursera and other courses and trying to figure out what's happening. I also see some of them preparing themselves for a new career in entrepreneurship. In fact, I've been talking to quite a few IMB alumni in the last few weeks. And again, I see that as a common feature of many people in their late 40s. So they're kind of anticipating some of the changes that will happen and trying to sort of get themselves ready for that by looking for new business ideas that they can push. So I think the thing is, essentially, one has to be, sensitive to what's happening around one. That's one thing one needs to be. Second, one needs to be continuously looking for new opportunities in all the changes that are happening. Third is, of course, the learning and continuous education piece. So all of these are important. I think we perhaps need to spend more time in higher education on I don't think you can know that you can teach this, but at least acquainting people with the need for, a new look at their way their careers will evolve. Some years ago, I used to teach a course with another HR colleague on managing your career. For some reason, we don't teach that course anymore, but I think we need to dust it out now and, bring in a lot of these new ideas and start offering it again. Because clearly the MBAs or even the techies of tomorrow will need to take a much longer term view of their career, including the need for all those transitions you were just talking about.
That's very important. And I still remember, Rishi, when I finished my mechanical engineering, and after the convocation, I came back home and one of my uncles had visited and he said, "Oh my God, new mechanical engineer. I have a problem with the carburetor in my car. Can you fix it?" And I was trying difficult to say that, look, boss, I mean, automobile engineering is not necessarily knowing how to fix your carburetor, but I would have looked like a complete fool. So I just kind of changed the topic. So I'm saying today there is so much of a discord between, education and skills. I am one of the people who believe that, look, we shouldn't end up, giving skills education to children in class 8 and class 9. There is a value of creating the theoretical underpinning of education, technology, management, etc. But we have to, probably impart learnability in students, that they have to be able to learn on their own. They have to be able to learn quick, adapt, and they have to have the propensity to learn. I think that's important. So let me just move quickly to the last question or the last comment. That was on leadership. I mean, leadership, of course, is another, as you said, cliche, nothing changes much, but at the same time, a lot changes. And today I'm finding that, even MBAs who've been trained on leadership, people who understand leadership, they need to keep thinking on new ways of leading in these difficult times. I'm sure Mr. Biden has to read all the possible books on be successful. I'm sure Mr. Modi is doing that, and I'm sure many of our corporate citizens are doing that. I mean, I was just looking at the business results. Even big companies like Bajaj Finserv, Bajaj Finance are seeing the strain of a very tough economy. So, and I know Rishi, you've done a lot of work and written a very recent paper also on leadership. So, any concluding thoughts on what is the quality of leadership that people must demonstrate, whether you're leading academic institutions, corporations, entrepreneurial firms, to be successful in the new environment?
I think there are several things which we need to do to build good leaders. I just mentioned a few of them. One of them, I think, is the ability to sort of practice scenario planning on a continuing basis. Given the pace of change, it's very difficult to predict what will happen tomorrow. In some ways, it might even be foolish to try and do so. What is perhaps more useful is to visualize different scenarios and think through how you will respond to those. Because then when any of those scenarios actually shows up, you will be in much better shape and well prepared to respond to that. So that's one thing I would certainly underline. Second thing is there's been amazing amount of research in psychology and behavioral, economics and so on in the last 20 years. And a lot of that points to a lot of the biases we have in decision making. Things like confirmation bias and recency effect and so on. So these are all fairly well known now. So I think it's about time in our education systems, we find ways of getting people to be more conscious and aware of these inherent biases, because these can be quite dangerous. I mean, in a fast changing environment, if you're going to be taking assumptions that worked yesterday, they probably won't work tomorrow. So you need to be constantly sort of correcting and checking for these different biases. That's the second thing. The third thing, I think you need to also be able to read weak signals well. Because see, risk management and again, de-risking on a continuous basis is another important characteristic for good leaders today. And this means that you have to be able to kind of read. I mean, C.K. Prahalad was very fond of talking about the importance of reading weak signals. And they're often around for anybody to see. I mean, just to give you a very quick example, a few months ago, I remember reading a news item that SBI credit cards were suddenly reporting higher rates of delinquency. Now, SBI cards is a pretty big institution, a lot of corporate cards, pretty good customers and so on. So if you start seeing delinquency there, that's probably a sort of leading signal that the whole credit industry is kind of going to be in trouble and so on. So I think it's a lot about doing that. The last point I'll mention, which is something perhaps in India we need to emphasize much more, is the importance of collaboration. I mean, I think whether you take digital, network economy, responding to a pandemic, whatever it is, collaboration has become extremely important. And you can see that, right? For example, you just look at the company from Pune, MyLab, which was the first one to come out with the RT-PCR kit. I mean, they very quickly managed to forge collaborations both with Serum Institute and with Syngene and others so that they could scale up very rapidly. And without that, they would simply not have been able to get the kind of scale which is required. And if you're a big company in the network economy, like you're even an automobile company like Ford, the kind of changes happening in mobility, you can't really cope with those unless you can collaborate with a whole lot of other companies which are looking at mobility in a different way. So I think one of the big challenges for our leadership development is developing the skills to build partnerships and manage them on an effective way. In India, we always tend to go alone, try to do everything ourselves. That's been traditionally the way. I mean, even in IT, for example, IT services companies want to do everything internally. They don't want to work with others. So I think there's really a huge need to move to partnerships and collaboration.
I think that's a great point you're making. And I mean, talking of leadership, I just noticed that Mr. Anthony Joseph, who's the president HR of Hinduja Global Solutions, has just joined. I know he has a session later. And I mean, I was just thinking as I saw his photograph that, look, I mean, company like Hinduja Global Solutions, for instance, suddenly in March, you find that, look, COVID has hit and people have to work from home. Within 2 weeks, they had 42,000 people in multiple countries, from Jamaica to Bangalore, suddenly switched to work from home. I think the adaptability, the nimbleness in which some companies have moved has been fantastic. But I think it gives us all hope that, as you rightly said, with all the flexibility and the collaboration and the willingness to engage in a new model, we will see a lot of change happening. I know we run out of time, so I'm going to hand over to somebody who has been on video all the time and has been nodding and shaking her head vigorously. Thank you, Saloni, for being a great audience. It always motivates me to look at somebody who's listening to every word. And back to you. And thank you so much, Rishi. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ganesh. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Natarajan and Dr. Krishnan. Yeah, I was actually thrilled to go through this entire conversation because being a teacher myself and being led by such wonderful leaders around me, there are some good examples. They are telling us what to do. So every bit I could actually see an example from people around me. So in fact, we all are reinventing ourselves. We're using these words, and like Sir said, de-jargonize. There are too many of these words floating around. They're very cliche, lifelong learning and etc. But definitely the magic word would be collaborative quotient. So as a teacher, I pledge that I will inculcate more and more collaborative quotient, enhance that among my students. And I carry this hashtag for myself, chalo kuch naya kare. So I keep trying to be like them and learn from them. And it's more, we have been talking about learning by doing. So now it is learning by doing together. So I think we should start doing it that way. So I was actually drawing a lot of inspiration and knowledge from both your conversations. So thank you so much indeed. It was very, very enriching. And I'm taking back some examples and some agenda for myself. My new session starts tomorrow, so my focus definitely will be that. Thank you, Dr. Krishnan and Dr. Natarajan. Great examples. I mean, it's just going better and better from here on. And the next session, again, I've already started introspecting, honestly. And like we all have invested in certifications, etc. I also did that. I did digital humanities. I went for a certification on education policy and was trying to ask myself, why am I doing that? Why should I do that? Because I thought that I have a responsibility when I meet my students. They should also know, why are they doing this course? Why are they studying this subject? So, and every which way, we actually come up with a new way of delivering the knowledge we have and also grow together. So, innovation is a word which is again floating all around. I was wondering, how as teachers or policymakers or advisors, how we all can be bringing in something new, some new dimension. And the next segment I'm excited about immensely because it is about the innovators panel, career innovators panel. So I'm really looking forward to it, and allow me to initiate that part of the forum. Chandan, shall we go ahead? We have all the
Yes. Kindly introduce them, no problem.
Okay, fantastic. So why am I excited about this particular session is because it's talking about career innovators panel. Now we have a lot of responsibility, and it's not just us. It is actually the entire. I mean, the idea is to bring in all the stakeholders and do it together. So I'm extremely excited about this segment, ASMA HR and Higher Education Forum 2021, powered by BIMTECH, enters into the next segment of this event, which is, as we all are talking about, higher education leadership. This is about those who are bringing in some great examples. So do listen to all of them. Eminent speakers of this segment, Dr. Ganesh, who will be moderating, Chairperson, GTP, and co-founder 5F World and Skills Alpha. And she'll be joined by Sridhar Shukla, co-founder and MD K Point Technologies, Deepa Rachel, CEO of Manford Founder Seek, and Pratham Sataria, founder and CEO of Immerse Education. I take this opportunity to introduce to you the moderator, and then I hand it over to her to introduce the other panelists. Dr. Ganesh, as we all just said, that she's chairperson of GTT, and she's the co-founder of 5F World Institute Alpha, has been in this domain for the last 3 decades, and she successfully led corporate and entrepreneurial ventures from sectors like manufacturing, media, banking, IT, etc. She's a business studies graduate from FMS Delhi and a PhD from IIT Mumbai. She has been the Chief Corporate Development Officer in HSBC Global Resourcing before she founded the Education and Corporate Solutions Company, Global Talent Track, in 2008. And she's been a recipient of several awards in recognition of her contribution to skill development and education. And she plays an active role in industry associations and business forums of national and regional levels. And amazing things that she has done. She will obviously let us know about these during this particular panel interaction. Digital impact and skills related subjects. Dr. Uma Ganesh, I'm really keen to know what would be the theme and how this entire session would be. So welcome as the moderator of this session, handing it over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Saloni, for that warm introduction. It is truly exciting to be part of today's session. Right from the opening keynote that GR delivered, and the very invigorating interactive session Rishi and Ganesh had on this subject of future of jobs, future of education, future of everything. This has really opened up several dimensions for us to ponder over, particularly in the context of how innovation is going to be so very relevant, and how innovation is going to necessarily play out in the context of education and workplace. So to talk about all of these themes, I'm privileged to have with me in today's panel 3 eminent speakers. Dr. Sridhar Shukla, he is the co-founder of K-Point Technologies. He has innovated on video technologies in his current avatar as the founder of K-Point. But prior to this, he has, to his credit, several other innovations, and he has won several accolades in creating them. So happy to have you with us, Sridhar, in today's session.
Thank you, Uma. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, indeed. We have Pratham. He is probably one of the youngest speakers that we have today. He is a chartered accountant by training and by profession, but he's working on some path-breaking ideas as to how innovation can be brought into the classrooms, even while the students are studying and get to have the world of experience. We will hear more about that as we go along. And the third speaker we have today is Deepa. Deepa is an astounding professional who has to her credit of transforming several professionals, several organizations. And today she is working on, once again, some path-breaking innovative approach of blending technology and behavioral science to bring about change, to facilitate change management in organizations and individuals. So with the introduction of my panelists today, let me get straight into setting the context for what we would like to cover in the next 50-55 minutes that has been allotted to us. So in the previous panel, we heard a lot about how the future of workplace is going to change, how the future of education necessarily has to therefore change, or we have already seen several signals in terms of the changes that have already started taking place. So in that context, I would like to just share with you a few slides, and I want to know whether I have the right to share the slides. I'm just asking this to the
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You can do that.
Yes, I can. Okay,
yeah.
Great. So just give me a second. I hope you can see my slides. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So now that we know the future of work is here, what does it mean in terms of the role for innovation for education and for employers and for the jobs that will have to be performed? So McKinsey did this study, and as per this report, it has highlighted that while we all recognize that the future is going to be very different, we got to recognize that the way people are going to be, employees are going to be hired in organizations, that is going to dramatically change. And out there lies almost the necessity for education to rethink how academia, education, learning, training, all of that would require to be redefined. So from well-defined occupations to project-based work, or for that matter, instead of youngsters coming out of top institutions like IIMs or BIMTECH or any other institution, no longer having to think necessarily about, will I get high salaries? Rather than that, they would probably be valuing independence, because also the need for continuously skilling, and it is the skills, it is the capability, it is that experience of transitioning your skills from one job to the other. These are the things which are going to be valued much more than just saying, look, I spent 15 years, as GR said in his opening speech, I spent 15 years in this job, and that is not something that is going to be valued any longer. Therefore, in addition to education credential, of course, you will require deep domain knowledge. What is really going to be more important is, how do you continuously look at taking that intrinsic knowledge and convert that into insights, which you can carry into newer domains, newer functions as required. So the kind of disruption that we are going to be seeing is probably going to be 300 times the industrial revolution, the impact that the industrial revolution made in the 19th century. And that's what all the pundits are predicting. So therefore, I would like to set the context for today's discussion to focus around what are those winning skills that will be required in the digital era, and how, as innovators, technology providers, educators, how can we actually facilitate young people coming out of institutions, out of academic organizations, how can they be equipped, whether it is to do with analytical skills, problem-solving skills, storytelling. It's all about, how do I narrate? How do I articulate my experience? And Rishi spoke beautifully about the new leadership acumen required in the coming years. So when there is so much of fuzziness around us, there is so much of fuzziness about the vision itself, how can we produce leaders who would be able to create that vision, can paint that scenario, paint that story, and that's why, and create confidence and excitement in that story. That is why the storytelling skills are going to become very important. Therefore, in all of this, whether it is presentation skills or multidisciplinary exposure that I spoke about earlier, amidst all of this, digital skills of various kinds, whether it is IoT or AI or mobility or cloud, all of these will keep evolving and keep getting more and more complex and more exciting. So those are also going to be something that we need to impart in any role, any kind of function that we are gearing up our youngsters for. So in this context, I would like to share with you very quickly some highlights from two companies that we have invested in and the kind of innovation that they are doing. First one is Career Jadoo, which believes in this philosophy that, look, you need to provide lifelong support for careers, and academic institutions or individuals have started recognizing that the learning that I have had so far is not adequate. I need to be on my toes all the while, because what may happen is, while on the one hand, I know there are so many options in front of me, music, sports, reading, how do I make reading convert reading into my profession, or build careers helping people. There are also opportunities for people to, as I said, move from one career to the other along the way. And in all of this, of course, digital is going to play a big role. So what this company is trying to do is basically look at how can they work with academia for building capacity of the students and of the organizations, of academic institutions. So first and foremost, there's quite a lot of confusion out there. If some of us who have been in the industry for 25, 30 years, we are wondering what the future is going to be like. You can imagine the young kids, and particularly those coming from tier 2, tier 3 locations, where there are significant first-time college goers, first-generation college goers. There is tremendous amount of confusion as to where do I start? After BCom, is there a life? After BCom, I'm hearing so many buzzwords. So discovering these new roles, we are talking about social listener. We have heard about eavesdropping is something bad, but now we are saying you can eavesdrop on the social media and you can make money out of it. You can make a successful career out of it. So this is something very exciting and very challenging and very curious for many people. So discovering roles like that. And then, of course, do I have it in me? What are the strengths I have? What are the skill gaps? How do I prepare for the career of my choice? And most importantly, the social capital. Because they do not have an ecosystem, there is also a need to provide that kind of a social support, social system, all happening on the digital mode. And at the same time, give them an opportunity to discover and reach towards their aspiration. So having said that, this is what the youngsters are looking at, and this is what a company like Career Jadoo is trying to address. The platform that is required to deliver all of this is another company called Skills Alpha, in which we have invested in. And what the Skills Alpha is doing is basically, for the first time, it is giving the power to the individuals and letting them figure out. I spoke about various skills. For each of the roles, what are the skills required? Where do I stand vis-a-vis those roles? And what is the gap? And there is an interesting algorithm working here. And the AI bot, along with the algorithm, is now empowering the individual to put the mirror in front of them and let them know, these are the gaps, this is what I need to acquire. And by doing this, can I go for those areas where I seem to have maximum match? Or if I have got the confidence that I want to go after the match where there is lowest, but still there is opportunity to learn. So this is how I just wanted to share with you a couple of examples of how digital technology and the real need of the individuals, of academics, are coming together in real life to make a difference and gear them up for the days ahead, and particularly for the digital transformation that all of us are experiencing. So at this juncture, I'm going to now request, firstly, Pratham to talk about these youngsters who are coming from tier 2, tier 3 locations in particular, or those who are confused and they're not aware about what the future is going to be like. I spoke about what Career Jadoo is trying to do, but apart from that, in addition to what can be given as a basic guidance, Pratham has been working on some interesting concept of giving experience, the virtual experience of jobs to individuals. So over to you, Pratham. Look forward to hearing from you how you have been working on this kind of a career innovation.
Thank you, Uma. Thank you so much. I would just like to share my screen first. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. First of all, it's a great pleasure to be part of this discussion panel. I'll just like to introduce myself very quickly before I start my presentation. So as you all know, my name is Pratham Sutaria and I am a chartered accountant. Post my chartered accountancy, I was working in the financial domain for a few years before I did my MBA from ISB. After which I went to London School of Economics for my master's, and then I was working as a strategy consultant with Accenture. After which I decided to start Immerse. So great. I would just like to, before I get into the products, I would just like to start off with a few facts that we've been working on and the basis on which the entire company and our products have been formed. So just starting off with a few facts. First of all, the Indian youth the employability of the Indian youth today stands only at 46%. This is much lower as compared to any of the other developed countries. We at Immerse strongly believe that this is because of two primary reasons. One being the skill gap, which I feel has been addressed during the sessions multiple times, and which predominantly stems from the fact that the curriculum, basically there is an education curriculum mismatch. That is, the courses currently are not really industry focused, or they need to enhance themselves to become really industry focused. So that stems from that. The second one being that students really do not get the real world experience. Now what we at Immerse are doing is that we are trying to combine, and we really trying to figure out a solution to solve both of these issues in a very, very innovative manner. So I'll come to the issues. However, what I really want to stress over here is what are the challenges that are being faced by the students to gain real world experience. These are some startling facts that we have found out. So the first one being that 88% of the youth prefer to do internships. This is as per the Indian Skills Report 2020, where it clearly lays, it interviewed about 3 lakh students, out of which around 88% of them said that they would want to do internships. However, another report suggests that less than 10%, it's actually less than 8%, want to do, less than 10% actually take up internships. Now there's a big gap over here of 80% of the students who want to do internships, who want to gain real world experience. However, they are not able to do that. Why is this? So we delved deeper into this issue and found out that the major reasons for this are the college timings, which prohibit the students to gain real world experience, accessibility to internships itself, accessibility to good companies, location accessibility. So a lot of issues which prevent the students from actually taking up the real world experience, because we strongly believe that this real world experience is something which will benefit or increase the employability of students. So this is these are few of the facts that we really found out when we delved deeper into this issue. Coming to the solution, what are we exactly doing at Immerse? So what we are doing is we are trying to solve both the issues, the skill gap issue and the real world experience. How are we doing this? We've created experiential courses that give students a real world experience. Now, these are experiential courses delivered in an internship format. Now, this internship format is a simulated internship format wherein students can step into the shoes of different career options and understand what happens in that. These are completely simulated, completely case-based, project-based learning. It's basically, we are changing the way programs are delivered online. We are trying to come up with something very different, very, very innovative. That's what we are doing currently. What we also strongly believe as a unit over here is that we are not only a course. What we do is an intersection of 3 things. One, we are definitely an educational course because learning is the primary motive. However, we also give real world experience through an interactive role-playing game. So we are an intersection of these 3 things. And that's what our products are really doing. So coming to our products, basically we have 2 product lines that we've started with. The first one is, which we call the virtual internship program. It's been in the market for over about 1.5 years now. It's doing quite well. We are associated with a lot of top schools, associated with a lot of other edtech companies, and also doing B2C. So I would like to discuss more. I would like to tell you more about the virtual internship program. Basically, this is a career discovery tool. What we do is, let's take a student somewhere in the age of 12 years to 18 years old. They are still trying to figure out which career should I take, which course should I pick up, what is going to be good for me. Of course, there are several solutions in the market, like career counseling, like psychometric tests, aptitude tests, which tell you that this is your interest, this is your aptitude, and this is the way you should move forward. However, one of the major problems over there is, even after a student is told that this is the career that you should go for, they are still completely clueless as to what exactly happens in that career. To solve this particular problem, what we did was we created simulated internship experiences to give a real world experience to students, wherein they understand what happens in the lives of each of these careers. So for example, if a student wants to take up chartered accountancy as a profession but really doesn't know what is the meaning of audit, most of them do not know what auditing is, what taxation is, what accounting is. What we do is, through a simulated experience, we give students the opportunity to undergo one whole audit process. What exactly happens step by step? They perform activities, they perform simulations, and then they understand. Also, there are guided videos by industry experts which explain them the different concepts, and hence they understand what exactly happens in a chartered accountant's life. Similar to this, we have various different career options. We have more than 18 career options at this stage in the virtual internship program. The purpose of this program is mainly that students get to explore a variety of career options. As I told you, the age group is 12 to 18 years. And again, these are bite-sized content, bite-sized 2 to 3 hours of 2 to 3 hours courses, which guide the student completely. These and also provide the real world experience. Coming to the second product line, which we are launching very soon in the next couple of days, is what we call corporate internship experience. Now, this is basically career skilling. Once the students have discovered what careers really suit them, we now want to skill them in that particular career. So now the main purpose of this second product, which is corporate internship experience, is to bridge the college to corporate journey. We strongly believe, and I'm sure most of you all agree, is that a lot of students, when they enter the corporate world, they are really not prepared. They really don't know the nuances, a lot of things, even in terms of the technical skills and also the soft skills. Hence, we want to bridge this by providing students a corporate internship experience with corporate. So what we are doing is we are creating these simulated internship experiences with the top corporates in the field to give an internship experience to the student. So these are courses designed by corporates, certified by corporates, and we bring it to the student. So the student basically becomes a virtual intern with the top corporates. The first one that we are launching very soon is a course in marketing, which we've collaborated with Puma and bringing it to the student. So the student becomes a virtual intern with Puma, understands all the aspects of marketing from the case studies and project-based learning of Puma with industry experts, which is the leadership of Puma, really putting out videos and explaining different concepts. So for example,
Pratham,
yes.
may I just request you to wrap up? We can come back to you
Okay,
later,
sure.
for more examples and questions, please.
Sure. So basically, this course will help the student understand the entire gamut of strategic marketing through the eyes of Puma, and how they have actually gone about it. Moving on to my last slide, this is what we've done. We have had over 7,000 students benefiting from the past 1.5 years from our products, and we've got some great responses, and this is what we are doing. So yeah, this ends my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pratham. That's an exciting proposition that you have for colleges, for students, school students, and college students. We will come back to you for learning more about the possibilities. Now, moving to Dr. Sridhar Shukla, I just got this very, very interesting WhatsApp message, and Mark, you are there, right? Mark from Australia, my good friend, he's there. He's going to be chairing the next session. You would be interested to know, all of us here would be interested to know that this WhatsApp post says, Australia, the key players that our Indian rookies are playing against, they had played collectively 254 tests together. Hazelwood, Stark, Cummins, Leon, Green, and so on. Whereas the Indian rookies, Siraj, Thakur, Natarajan, Saini, Sundar, amidst just them, they had only 9 tests experience with them. So the question really is, here is an experienced group of veterans against whom the rookies with hardly any experience they played against. What really gave them the confidence? And more importantly, it's not just the confidence, it is that technique and expertise they need to bring to the field of play when it mattered. So that has technology played a role? Have they been able to access a lot of videos? Have they been able to assimilate all of these very differently? And in tomorrow's world, this sort of an ability to learn on the fly, to be able to apply what you learn quickly, and therefore experience being not at all being important, which was emphasized even earlier, but application and insights which are getting to be important. In that context, Dr. Sridhar Shukla, we'd love to hear about the innovation that you're currently working on, and what do you think is going to be the future of video solution for all of us? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Uma. And that's a perfect segue into what I would like to talk about. I'm going to share my screen. And I think Pratham is sharing his screen, so I cannot. Pratham, can I request you to turn it off? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pratham.
Yeah. So, all right. So, good morning to all. And Uma, you said maybe the rookies from India team saw many videos about how they needed to improve. And you probably are perfectly on the mark there, because how would someone achieve so much improvement without actually getting to see what the mistakes are, what the tricks the others make? And there is nothing more powerful than seeing again and again what you want to learn from or what you want to acquire as your own skill. So I'm Sridhar Shukla of K-Point Technologies. I want to begin by telling you our genesis. And I want to tell you that in the context of a quote that we are all living through. And this quote is by Bill Gates, and I'll read out. We always overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. Just think of the change going on because of what happened in 2020. If you go back a little, then you can think of the change that 2008 wrought upon us. If you go back even a little more, you can think of the change that the e-commerce revolution brought upon us. So he's got the interval perfectly right. Every about 10 years, we all go through changes, accumulated changes that completely change things on us. And so the way I want to relate it to K-Point Technologies is that we are a 10-year-old company trying to help companies make use of video at work, in learning, in selling, in communicating, what have you. And the way we began our journey was, when it was early 2001 or 2, web meetings were kind of starting to become popular in the tech industry. And I remember purchasing a single 1-hour web meeting from Citrix for about $100 to pitch to a prospect in Seattle while sitting in Pune. And then as we worked, this became more and more common. And so in any web meeting or audio conference or a video conference such as this, in a globalized world, what happens is somebody is going to sleep, someone is waking up, someone is sending the kids to school, or may have just finished a meal. And we all forget that even though we are sharing a screen, we are all in completely different circumstances on our seats and around our seats. And what is expected is that we grasp all this. That's the nature of the interaction on the screen. And so we thought that exactly was happening in our company, where we had customers all over and we had to solve the problem, because we didn't want the young parents to stress out either in the morning or at night. So we said, hey, let all these web meetings take place. If you can make it, great. But if you can't, we'll give you a searchable video recording. Mind you, that was in 2002. Let me use common phrases. Who would have thunk that in 2020, we all would be spending most of our day in meetings like this and then wondering which meeting I attended, when, for what, with whom? I've got no clue, and I've got no way of getting back to it either. So that was the genesis 10 years ago. We should have anticipated the pandemic and really understood the impact of what we were doing. Now we are hit by a truckload of work and demand, because what we do is we make meetings like this searchable and interactive. So the basic idea is to use video without using live video, because you need your own time to consume things. And like the example you gave, Uma, you can't always be watching a movie. You want to watch how the player is bowling on your mobile. So that's what we do. We have built a video platform. And things that I say are not going to be really magic, because even kids today make a video and upload on YouTube. But to do it all the time for all the functions at work is a slightly different game. And I can bet you that they are going to be far more adept at it than we are. And so we got to get ready for it too. When you have video, what you need to do is you need to capture it. You need to host it somewhere. You need to enrich it, then share it, publish it, analyze. Simple verbs, right? Out of which what we know today is to capture and host. We also know share, but not really in a smart way. But enriching it, analyzing it are still difficult. We are in a career innovator session, and we are talking about digital skills, Uma. And there are three categories of digital skills. One is basically to be able to live your life in a digital world. Sign up for things, make payments, not forget passwords, protect them, protect your info, all of that, base level. Then there is the middle tier of digital skills, where what you are able to do is create content, promote content, analyze content. We are all able to do it on Twitter and Facebook, but not really for work. So, think about being able to communicate something with video. We are all taught in school for a decade to read, write, and speak. Okay, we spend so much time perfecting our handwriting, maybe now typing, and correcting grammar and things like that. But are we taught to act? Like you said, are we taught to tell a story? Are we taught to understand who's receiving our story, how? These are our complex skills, and they're basically to be able to communicate. And the third layer of skills is to use all these digital technologies to be able to solve and transform problems, right? For example, how would you do smart farming? How would you do smart selling? So those three layers of skills, and the middle one is critical, and what we do actually helps us take care of it. So very quickly, I'll spend a minute to give you a big picture. Video is coming from everywhere. It could be a live stream, such as the Facebook stream that's going on for this event. You could record your own video. You could author a video by taking time creating clips. You could import something. You could use the recording of a meeting like this. Then you got to take it in somewhere and curate it. Make it interesting, make it interactive. Then you got to push it in a system of your preference, choice, demand, need, whatever it is. Could be a learning management system, could be a media portal, could be a website. And then you got to analyze various performance metrics. So these are the things that you need to do with video. Now, the last point I'll make here, and then I'll stop, Uma. When you look at a video, what do you see? You see basically a black box with a timeline in between. And then you watch. You go into a watch TV mode. That's not enough. You got to be able to interact with that content. You have to collaborate around it. You have to jump back and forth. Sometimes the author has to give a non-linear viewing experience. Sometimes you want to read a video because you want to read the transcript and jump to the point of interest. You want to save it for watching later. You want to know who the people in the video are. You want to push a document along with the video. So video is complex. It's just a place in which you live, communicate, do the work. We are trying to do that, Uma, and I related that to digital skills. This is a core skill for everyone. And there are lots of things aside from running the camera and uploading the recording somewhere. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sridhar. That was a fabulous session. And the key takeaway for me from your session is, if I were to be going to school today, one of the skills that probably I would be learning, or my teachers would have to think about imparting to me, would be how to act, and more importantly, how to actually visualize and make the videos, learn the video making techniques, the basic art of videos, at least as I move forward into the rest of my life. So I'll circle back to you, Shukla, later to talk about other things that would be of interest to our audience.
Sure, thank you.
Now I will like to move to Deepa. Deepa, you and I have had some interesting conversation about the fantastic work that you're doing. And for the benefit of audience, I would like to mention here that when we are trying to get on to this digital era, for some of us, it is very natural, but for many of us, it is not natural. Whether it is as basic as learning everything about using video, not only making video, but just using video as Sridhar so beautifully put it out. Or for that matter, even thinking about how do I get to my aspirational role? So we see at GTT, every day we train and we send so many students for interviews. Many of them come back saying, you know, I answered the questions perfectly well, but I don't know why the interview did not select me. At the end of the conversation, in fact, the interviewer even shook hands with me and said, oh, that was very good. We had a very good conversation. So we find that 9 out of our 10 kids today coming out of colleges, they don't know what they don't know. And more importantly, even if they know what they need to know, they don't have in it, they don't have enough, you can say, conviction in them or persistence to continue to do some changes which are really going to make a huge difference to them. But Deepa has been extremely successful in doing this through a combination of behavioral approach and digital technology. So Deepa, over to you. Please share with us your thoughts and experience.
Thank you so much, Dr. Uma. Interesting conversations. If you look at all the three that we've talked about, I think the challenge that we're constantly talking about is that somewhere the gap between knowledge and being able to practice that knowledge seems to be ever increasing, especially because knowledge is very easily available today. Almost anything can be Googled and found out about, yet somewhere to implement that knowledge is where the gap is. So I will answer my questions correctly when the interviewer asks me, but do I know how to demonstrate that knowledge is the question today. I'm going to start with, I don't have a presentation, but I'm going to start with how this entire bit of changing behavior and the challenges in changing behavior to making it a skill or a competence. So I'm going to give you a simple example to illustrate that. I live in Bangalore. People who are aware of Bangalore a little before the pandemic will be aware that we are known for our horrendous traffic. So there was a campaign that set off on one of the radio channels, which was encouraging people not to honk. And typically, most of the RJs, while I would be driving myself to work, I would hear them talk about, don't honk. Now, when I hear something like that, it seems to align with something that I believe in and know as well, that honking is not necessarily a good thing to do. So when I hear it, it encourages me not to honk. And if I do honk, I have two little ones in the car who will scream out saying, Mama, you're not supposed to honk. So I noticed that I changed my behavior. I actually reduced the amount of honking that I did while I heard these campaigns on radio. A couple of weeks go by, the traffic commissioner comes on radio, and he says that there's been a significant drop in the noise levels in Bangalore. And it seems like the campaign was a huge success. It actually encouraged a lot of people to change their behavior. 2 weeks go down. We know that we've been able to change behavior. There's great motivation. There's great kudos for having achieved it. Take a guess as to how long it took for the noise levels to come back up once the campaign stopped. So the surprising thing is it took less than a day. Because I changed my behavior. As long as there is reinforcement telling me that I should change my behavior, and I'm aligned to that reinforcement. The minute the reinforcement goes away, I behave like how my critical mass around me behaves. The critical mass around me is the bus, is the auto, who doesn't have radio and who's not getting the same reinforcement that I'm getting. So this is primarily where we got into aligning change. So knowledge on one hand, how do I take that knowledge and build it into a skill or a competence through a regular reinforcement, feedback, motivation process? And how do I use the strength of critical mass to be able to make change last? So let me ask you all a question, a very common question, which is, do people resist change? I can see you all nodding or shaking your head, so you can respond to that. Do people resist change?
Yes.
Okay. Most of us believe that people resist change. What data suggests is people do not resist change. People resist the losses and endings that happen due to change. People welcome beginnings and new beginnings and gains that happen because of change. So somewhere we need to transition well to be able to make this change stick, make it a skill, make it a competence. So let's take another example. Most of us, we're right at the beginning of the new year, and this has been a crazy year to have gone past the one that went past. So we've heard of New Year resolutions, right? So if you look at, for most of us, we write something called as a New Year resolution, or at least we think of it. A lot of us say, oh, we don't believe in New Year resolutions, and that is probably why, because we know it's not going to work, right? So if you look at it, most of us start with a New Year resolution, and the New Year resolution is an intent to change. The New Year resolution can be, as a student, I want to read a little bit more. I want to learn a new skill every month. It could be fitness. It could be, I want to lose weight. The minute I make a New Year resolution, I display an intent to change, right? The minute I intend a desire to change, the next best thing that I do is Google. So if you go to Google and you write how to, and you get the answers for everything. So knowledge is not a challenge whatsoever. So I want to lose weight, I Google, how do I lose weight? I want to join a gym, I Google, how do I do well in a gym? Or how do I concentrate more? Or how do I meditate? So I have the knowledge as to how to do it. And then comes the easy bit. We start. The 1st of Jan, we start. So day 1 of exercise goes well. Day 2 of exercise goes well. Day 3 goes well. You hit day 6, day 7, and then the losses start creeping in. You know what the losses are? The losses are that the body is hurting, and you're probably getting up half an hour before to go to your gym, or you're probably losing out on half an hour that you spend with your friends. Now, this is the point at which we most likely derail from a behavior or a skill or a practice that we're looking to become really, really good at. So what Seek set out to do is combine this knowledge of behavioral sciences with technology and see, how do I keep you on track? So let's assume I know that I will lose track at day 6. So there's a nudge that comes to you, a digital nudge that comes to you, which says, stick on for just one more day. I know it hurts. I know it's painful, but there are people who have done it and have done exceedingly well. stick on it for just one more day. So it's important to get that nudge at the right time. The fact that we all have phones today is a great thing, because I can get a nudge in the form of a push notification on my phone at the point that I need it. It needs to come at the right time, because imagine me getting a nudge about going to a gym at 9 o'clock in the morning is not going to help because I'm at work. So the nudge being at the right time is extremely important. The second thing is the nudge has to use something called as persuasive technology. Somewhere we need to understand what is it that's holding each of us back. For me, as a working mother, the challenge could be the lack of time to go to a gym, right? For a 21-year-old, it could be lack of time still, but it could be lack of time in the context of spending with his or her friends. So the persuasive technology part comes in terms of intelligence and telling you, what do I need to push whom at what point in time? So this is what we do at Seek. We talk about organizational change. We believe that every individual, all of us sitting on this panel and watching this, all of us get up each and every morning with an intent to do something fantastic, right? And yet somewhere during the day, there's a lot that can happen that can derail me. Now, what if there was a digital nudge that would tell me exactly what I am looking to work on in the context of an organizational goal? And somewhere while I do this over and over and over again, it'll become a part of me. Similarly, when I do a critical mass effect, you need about 45% of your people around you behaving in the same way. It lands up making change sustainable, or behavior converting, or behavior actually moving into a habit, behavior becoming a skill or a competence. So this is exactly what we do using technology, a combination of nudge, persuasive technology, a little bit of very complicated terms like AI, but making it simple for how do people want, helping people make the change happen, make the change stick. So that's primarily what we do.
Thank you so much, Deepa. That is such a, I mean, the way you articulated the change process and the nudge process. I wish we had more time to talk about some specific case studies that we could have heard you talk about, to share with everybody, but I think that'll have to wait some other day. I'm conscious of the fact that we need to wrap up in the next 3-4 minutes, and that's a promise I have made to Rahul, so that other sessions will also start and end on time. So as we have about 3-4 minutes, I'm now going to turn to each one of you with just a single question. Sridhar, starting with you. We have heard a lot since the morning about the fact that future is going to change. New skills are required. Change is required in a very consistent manner, as Deepa mentioned. So in all of this, amidst all of this, if you were to call out 3 important things that have to happen within the corporate environment to accommodate for this future of work, what would be those 3 things? Sridhar.
Sure. Item number 1 there is people have to begin sharing a lot more. Okay, that's particularly true because we are all working from home, or some are working from office, but it's a much more diverse mix today. If you look at the general statistic on the internet, 1% share, 9% comment, and 90% view. That's got to change, and with the younger generation, it is changing rapidly. Okay? So I think it's very important that we all share a lot more, and sharing is not just pushing things. You have to share meaningfully, and you have to motivate people to consume. So sharing is just share and promote, not just share. That's item number 1. I think it's got to start from the top right to the bottom, and people at the top have to consume people who are at the bottom who share. Number 2, I think we've got to give up the expectation that people will have done the jobs before we allocate some work to them. There is everything available to learn. Once you have learnability learned, then you can do any job. And the Indian team reference really comes in handy here. You don't need experience, and all the organizations have to switch to that mode that yes, some experience is needed, but it's not a make or break thing for getting an individual on board. Number three is we really have to form small teams, stack teams who are fully empowered and get rid of the hierarchies that we are accustomed to in companies. Those are the three I would say need to change going forward.
Great. Thanks
The
very
last
much.
one is quite old, but it's still there, much stronger.
Always relevant. Yes. Thank you so much, Sridhar. Pratham, if you can tell us two things where academia need to adapt in order to accept all the innovation that people like yourself and others are working on.
Sure. So according to us at Immerse, we strongly feel two things that really need to happen. One is a strong shift towards the digital side, which the academia needs to really skills as one of the key aspects and impart education in that way. We've seen that change in 2020, and we strongly believe that that needs to happen. The second, of course, is the focus on the industry focused skills and the real world experience. So that shift needs to happen in the curriculum as well. So these are the two major things that we strongly believe that this shift has to happen, and the academia needs to pick this up.
Deepa, thank you very much, Pratham. Deepa, because we're running out of time, I'm just going to request you to talk about one big thing, if you were to call out society, where you, me, everybody is responsible for. If we have to change, what do you think that should be the change that we should look at to make this digital era work for everybody?
So interesting thing that my colleague said to me in the morning today, which is what I'm going to leave you all with. We need to quickly adapt to the innovation. Somewhere it's not only about innovating something, it's about how quickly we all adapt to it. So I think that's what I'm going to leave you all with.
Thank you very much, Deepa. Thanks, Sridhar and Pratham, for all your insights and ideas that you shared with the audience. Thanks, Rahul and team, for inviting us to be part of this exciting session today. Over to you, Rahul, over to you, Saloni, for the next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Natarajan, and all the eminent speakers of this panel. It just takes me to my own role as a teacher, and in the last 1 year, I'm happy to share that at BIMTECH, we all put in our best and we brought our digital avatars out in a way that's unbelievable, because it was important. It could not have waited, more. And we had the support of our own students in building our capabilities as far as integrating digital technology was concerned, because we had to do it. So the synergy was great. And I think you'll be happy to also know that as a part of experiential learning, which Pratham was mentioning, there are so many things integrated in our own curriculum that students learn by practice. So this is happening, and many more institutions need to take that as an example as well. Deepa mentioned about, changing of habits and behaviors. I was reminded of the book Nudge, written by Richard Thaler and Sunstein, where they have been talking about a lot of things. I'll just remember lines I like to share. Even if we know what is good for us, we often do not take the actions necessary to do good for ourselves. So many times, yes, that push is required, but I'd also leave with a line once again from the same book. Since so many of our actions are automatic, making conscious decisions ahead of time can keep our future selves from making bad decisions. So for example, putting the chips away in the cupboard while leaving an apple on the kitchen counter. So thank you all the speakers for doing this for us, and the teachers are aware, they're becoming self-aware as well. And I hope, Sridhar, most of our faculty would get more easy with the video now, because that was another challenge which many of us faced, making our own videos. And so we've become filmmakers, and we are all, heroes and heroines, and we are feeling great, coming on the video. So that confidence got instilled, and thank you so much, all of the 4 speakers, and joined by the wonderful moderator, Dr. Natarajan. It has just brought in a new perspective. It has opened our eyes. It has given us a reassurance that we have people like these panelists who are there to guide us with technology. So I think it's a wonderful invitation to all the academicians joined here today that we have these support around us. So we, like in the initial session, we said we can't do it all alone. So let's not do it all alone. Let's integrate the right kind of people in our teams and come up with the best content and relevant content, and revisit our way of teaching, design our curriculum, and take it ahead and make it more futuristic and relevant to the current students we teach. So the learning has changed, and thank you, the paradigm we are all aware of that we need to transform. Really grateful for this session. And once again, I would like to thank ASMA for, including me here today, because now as a teacher, because I am also handling the issues of employability skills, and people talked about the gap from the India Skills Report and all of that. Yeah, that's true. That's right, glaring on our faces. So as an institute, higher education institute, we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. And next session is going to be really important, because while being in an educational institute, I think it's important for us to look at the other side. And I would like to implore the industry to include us while they are designing their own new job roles, etc., so that we do things relevant in our campuses. So the next session, again, is going to bring in a very diverse perspective. And we are now looking at these sessions are only just enriching us one after the other. So I think we are good to go with the next session, and that is exploring future of education and work with people from the tracks, with people from the HR community, the leaders from there. So I'm really waiting to hear what they have for us, so that we together implement some great things on our campuses, and so that the industry doesn't face the deficient workforce that they are constantly complaining about. This session is going to be moderated by Mr. Mark Jankelson. He's the board chair, Social Venture Partners, Melbourne, and he will be speaking to the guests Amit Das, Anthony Joseph, and Rajesh Kumar Sinha. And I would like to introduce the moderator and then hand it over to him to introduce the speakers. Mr. Jankelson is a partner and board chair of Social Venture Partners, Melbourne, building up the affiliate and being part of the investment committee. Being in this domain for more than 40 years with global experience in the people management business, and 14 of these at CEO levels in the consulting industry. Oh, wow, that's a fantastic moderator to have for this session. So he has served as an advisor to boards and chief executives on the entire range of organization and people-related issues. And he has a special interest in mentoring and coaching leaders, advising organizations on ethical leadership issues, and helping organizations transform their cultures. And of course, he's going to bring in a lot of examples. He's going to tell us where to go from here. Welcome, Mr. Mark Jankelson, and over to you for this session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The first lot of speakers have really set a very, very good scene for this next session. So this is the industry perspective, and it's great that we've got 3 quite diverse industries represented. So we've got media, we've got services, and we've got heavy industry. And what we're going to focus on, and I've had an opportunity to talk to 3 of the panelists, is how are they viewing future of work within their own organizations? How are they responding? How is HR responding to technological change? And then we want to spend a bit of time on the question, what does industry expect educators to be doing to make people more employable when they get to work? So those will be, and I'll invite each speaker to talk a bit about how they're responding, what they're doing in terms of technology, HR technology, and then we'll talk a bit. And their views are remarkably similar on what they're expecting from academia. So let me first start. I just want to read the start of a report written by McKinsey quite recently called "Getting Practical About the Future of Work." And it goes like this. What story will people tell about your organization over the next 10 years? Will they celebrate an enthusiastic innovator that thrived by adapting workforce skills and ways of working to the demands of the new economy? Or will they blame poor financial operating results, unhappy employees, and community disruption on a short-sighted or delayed talent strategy? And McKinsey's modeling shows, and we've heard this, I think, a number of times through the session, McKinsey's modeling say that by 2030, up to 30 to 40% of all workers in developed countries may need to move into new occupations or at least upgrade their skill sets significantly. That is a huge figure. And research further suggests that skilled workers in short supply will be even scarcer. What I find interesting is that some organizations are already out front in this issue. So they quote Amazon, which has recently pledged 700 million to retrain 100,000 employees for higher skilled jobs in technology. JP Morgan Chase has made a 5-year, 350 million commitment to develop technical skills in high demand. And Walmart has invested more than 2 billion in wages and training programs, including Walmart Pathways, which educates entry-level employees about the company's business model and helps workers develop valuable skills. So it's just making the case that employers shouldn't wait. They have to really be a significant leader in driving the change. One of the other statistics that I do find quite concerning coming out of all the research is that the people in remote areas and those that with lower levels of education are 4 times more likely to be impacted by job shifts than those in high growth areas or with higher education. So I think there's some really key messages there. So with that as a backdrop, maybe I'd like to start with Amit Das. Just how is Times of India responding to what we've heard as the backdrop of change? And perhaps you can talk about the 3 Ws, I think, that you referred to as the way you are thinking about these changes. Amit, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Mark, and good morning, all of you. It's a real pleasure to be part of this panel discussion on a very pertinent topic that all of us in the industry have been talking about for quite some time, and especially with the COVID-19 pandemic that hit us. It started off with a kind of a health crisis, but it slowly snowballed into an economic crisis globally with huge impact on the world of business. So to your point, Mark, on the future of work and how we are looking at in the industry and what kind of thing that we have in our mind, which we are actively working on. So we all know that the VUCA has become the new normal for the business world for quite some time. But a disruption like the one that we have just witnessed, COVID-19 pandemic, has really been the acid test for leadership across the global organizations. We have already, is there any?
Yeah, you're okay.
Sorry?
Yeah, sir, good to go. We can hear you. It's fine.
Okay, sure. So what I'm trying to say is that we have already witnessed the emergence of a new business model, which in our business parlance we call it network orchestrator, examples being companies like Uber, Airbnb, Swiggy's of the world. Okay, and there's a huge influx of new age workforce like the millennials and the Gen Zs who have started stepping into the world of work. The sweeping digital disruptions in a knowledge-driven networked organization ecosystem. So when we try to imagine the future world of work, which all of us are trying to imagine, we need to have an incredible amount of foresight and planning about the business and the way we manage the workplace. When the world of work, in my mind, will recalibrate itself into a new norm. So instead of trying to predict the future of work only, as I mentioned to Mark when we were talking separately on this, I think I foresee a simultaneous transformation of what I call WWW, the 3 Ws, work, workplace, and workforce in the near future. So while we will see massive shifts in our ways of working going forward, but I believe the biggest shift in my mind post this COVID era is going to the mindset shift. We will move from a mindset where we will no longer ask, can I do this in person? To asking, do we need to do this in person? So this would mean an opportunity for interaction with all our stakeholders moving seamlessly in this virtual mode. So while we transition into a more hybrid work arrangement with remote working and work from home as the new ways of managing the work, also the workplace and workforce is going to change simultaneously. We need to be conscious of few fundamental things again. And as HR professionals, I think we have to very clearly have this in mind that our human brains trigger release of certain happy hormones, all of us are aware of, based on the stimulus of different senses that we have, like the touch, feel, the smell, what we hear, what we see. So in a work from home virtual environment, we can simulate the physical environment through technology. But it is very difficult for us to replicate the physical workplace environment where we get these senses which help us trigger these hormones from the brain. So this might have its own impact on the sense of belongingness and the associated engagement challenges. So employers, I think, will soon come to realize the benefits of what we say the gig working model, and we'll have more leaner on-demand organization structures. So after identifying the critical roles required to achieve the business outcomes, the employers will need to identify the right mix of talent continuum. So this WWW model that we are talking about will help reorganize how work is done, where work is done, and by whom work is done. So this would need complete overhaul of the organizational culture and the policies to be more inclusive for this gig workforce that we are talking about. So the focus now is to redeploy and reskill talent with better insights coming from the data, market awareness, and agile organizational culture to ensure this business continuity and also survive and thrive post the crisis. So today, if we find the workforce today, the new age workforce, the millennials, they're extremely excited to be part of this digital transformation journey, which provides them endless opportunities. And the organizations need to leverage this appetite for embracing this new age technology and drive a seamless transition. So what is important is that we must choose the right intuitive technology for high adoption, identify the internal evangelists for accelerating this buy-in process. We have to help employees understand what is in it for them, and customize our various learning modules, highlight some quick wins, at the same time, reward the desired behavior for adopting the right people technology. So going forward, in my mind, the differentiating factor will be how we demonstrate this agility, adaptability, critical thinking, and of course, the growth mindset to create anti-fragility, not only in our own organization, but also the overall business ecosystem at large.
Thanks for that. I'll come back and ask you shortly about HR and how you're using technology. Let me turn to Anthony Joseph. Oh, he's on. How about that? Who's President and Chief Human Resources Officer at Hinduja Global Solutions. So let me ask you the same question. How are you thinking about this new world of work, and how are you responding internally to these challenges?
Sure. Thank you, Mark. And when we started, then Ganesh did refer to Hinduja Global Solutions. And let me start with some practical stuff that we did. It took us over a year to get 400 people to work from home. It took us about 18 months to make that 400 into 1,000. It took us 2 weeks to make the 1,000 into 18,000, and less than 2 months to get the 18,000 into 40 plus thousand people working from home. That's what the pandemic did for us. Was it easy? That will be a big lie to say it was easy. What did we have to do? We had to do, in a short way, 2 things. Number one, the relevant people had to jump in to get things done. Equally important, and I think the more difficult one, was people in big positions who were not required had to move out and let people work. And I think both are important. A lot of times we believe that I need to be at the center of the action, but there's big learning on when do you jump in, when do you move out and let people work. So we sort of addressed 3 areas, which is what we call that hiring right, train right, and manage right. And technically that's what we do. We have people that come in and leave our organization based on the nature of the industry. And I'm going to give you one example on just the hiring. So we had to train people who used to get trained at the workplace with the supervisor or a trainer in the room. And if they had a query, they could raise their hand physically and somebody would come and help them. And a lot of paperwork or paper systems or emails, tickets, you're raising of tickets to make sure you got your resolution from either a work or an employee related issue. All that had to change overnight because coming to the workplace was unsafe and in many countries illegal because you were banned. So here is a hiring example. In the geographies that we work in, between 60 and 80% of the applications that we receive from potential employees were through walk-ins. That means people would actually come in and walk into the office, drop a physical printed resume, and then go out and wait for a call. All that had to change in a few weeks, which meant people weren't coming in. The good news was our clients wanted more and more support and more services, which means demand was actually going up. We had to address the issue of safety first, and then are we getting the right skills and people? So that's when technology came in. And in a matter of less than 2 months, we created bots, which means people had to or could go online, apply, do interviewing electronically, including on the video, the voice quality, your ability. And we also had to check, was your home set up to work from home? All these things we didn't know before March. And all that had to be done quickly. Now, how are people going to apply? They need to know that something is out there. So it was, how did you market yourself into your relevant potential employee base so that they got attracted to you? So what people were doing in terms of online shopping for essentials, for leisure, if I would say, for relaxation, for help, became online shopping for jobs. And we had to be the merchandiser who said, here is a job available and here is a career available for you. What it did, therefore, was from a lot of physical screening that we would do, that came on to automated electronic screening. From a lot that depended on the efficiency and the judgment of the recruiter, which could often be biased, they moved away. And your efficiencies went up multiple times, your biases went up multiple times. We managed to address the skills part of it, We are in the process of validating, and we're not at zero. We're probably between 60 and 70% on how do you also address the personality aspects of it, which are machine-led, which are machine-validated. But where we are today is at least twice better than where we were even 10 months ago. Let's not forget one more thing, which is many of the homes are built for people to stay, including shared accommodations. Our housing is not designed in most countries to work from home. So the work has intruded home and not the other way around, which meant in training right, are we sensitizing our leaders that you're being seen on video? Your emotions, your frowns, your smile, your anger is being seen on video. There's enough of tension happening. Don't pass your tension to somebody else. So that's the kind of training that we had to go through, right from the executive team downwards. And if the kitchen makes a noise, there's a grinder, there's a mixer, there's a pressure cooker that goes off. You have no right to get angry. You've got to be tolerant. Because remember, the work has intruded home and not the other way around. So in addition to skills, in addition to technology, the emotional aspect of what needed to get addressed and sensitized to was also a big education for us. So Mark, I know we can go on, but I'll be respectful.
No, that's great. And I think it's useful that you gave that example, which you described to me before. Okay, let me turn to Rajesh Kumar Sinha. Here we have somebody who's president and head of HR for TBEA and Energy India. So they're heavy manufacturing, and they are facing a very different set of challenges because of the work demands that are not necessarily all able to be automated. So Rajesh, how about you commenting on how you are thinking about the new world of work and what changes are you contemplating to improve the work life of the people as well as the efficiency of the work?
Okay, good morning, Mr. Mark and all the panelists and speaker.
Morning.
I'm audible?
Yeah, all
okay,
good.
Okay, so I will just talk how this pandemic has affected us. See, we as you told, we are from heavy manufacturing industry. In fact, we are manufacturing power transformer and we are also a project company because we are constructing substation for the transmission line and distribution line. Right? So before pandemic, we didn't have any concept of work from home, right? We didn't have any concept. So all were necessarily need to be present on the workplace. So that was the concept. So this pandemic also forced us, to change our way of working. So so it was lockdown, then we had restriction on the workforce. How we have changed? I tell you. So our manufacturing process, start with the design, right? So earlier designer used to visit shop floor, because when the technicians, when they are manufacturing the transformer on the assembly line, so they face some problem, right? And then the quality engineer, design engineer need to be present there to guide them, right? So now the thing has changed. We are forced to change. So now they are doing it through video, right? I mean, they are guiding them. They need not to be present there. The worker has to be there because they have to still work manually on the line, right? But this engineers, they're able to guide them through video call. Then same, our product is totally customized product. So we manufacture as per the specification provided by the customer. So customer need to visit us at all stages of the manufacturing process, whether it's soft floor or at the final testing. So they also had to visit us physically to do the inspection or the testing. So they're also doing it virtually most of the time now. Sometimes they have to still visit physically, but now 70-80% they are doing also through on virtual platform. So we have fitted cameras in testing room on soft floor, so they have access of this cameras and and through video, through the camera, they can inspect this directly, right? So this is totally unthinkable before the pandemic. And also we all meeting we had all meeting, physical meeting. Everybody needs to be necessarily present in meeting room, right? So all the meeting is going virtually now. Right? And even our training was also, most of the training was, in fact, almost 90% training was a classroom training, or the one-to-one meeting in the form one-to-one meeting. So now again we are forced to, because of social distancing and all. So we are using it through video or the other virtual platform. So these are the changes has come, and in fact we are still in the mode of revival or the transformation, right? So this is how the work processes or a way of doing the work has changed. So in a way, in many ways it's good. Because it's saving time, and because for everything you need not to be present physically. So it's saving your time sometimes. And as some of our panelists speaking, so it also forces you to find some way how to be more efficient, how to be more effective. So you are as effective as being not physically present there. So definitely you need to be adaptive, you need to innovative all the time. So this is how this pandemic has changed our mindset and the processes.
Yep.
So this is what changes we are facing at this moment.
Thank you. I'd now like to ask the panelists something that has just sort of struck me about the conversation we've been having. That we talk quite a lot about behavioral change. And I know I've spent most of my career coaching executives and mentoring, that unless you have somebody observing what's going on, it's quite hard to actually see yourself as others see you. So I'm wondering, do you see a role for, in the same way as sports teams have coaches for batting, coaches for bowling? Ganesh said that we weren't going to talk about cricket, but I will. But great teams have a lot of coaches surrounding, observing behavior and nudging people along. So you can use technology to nudge. What are your thoughts about changing the role of managers and leaders to be more like coaches and less like the traditional manager? Anthony, maybe I'll start with you. Do you have any thoughts on that subject?
We recognized this probably 10 years ago, but we acted on this about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And for the first 20 months or so, we moved at probably 10 kilometers an hour. In the last 18 months is where we've accelerated this. Fortunately, before the pandemic, we've appointed and we've been working with an executive coach for the last 2.5 years, who is an executive coach for the CEO and his direct reports. We use a term which is, he's there in critical meetings, including our business planning and budget meetings. And he's there as a fly in the wall.
Yep.
Noticing what needs to get done in observations. Okay. Now, in addition to that, HR plays an important role. And I'm breaking the rule that I will talk cricket. HR plays an important role where you're batting on a tricky wicket, wherein you could hit a boundary and you could also get out, but there's a lot in between. You could get hurt. You're going to get bouncers at you.
Yeah.
And no matter what people say, nobody likes being told you need to change. Worse still, nobody likes to need to told that you are wrong. Okay, so that's a tough part. But having said the importance of that, the working through that And HR has to be very, very ready to ensure that you're going to get bouncers at your body. How do you face them, but you don't get out? But the importance of that cannot be, it's always been important. It's just been magnified a lot more.
And have you extended that thinking lower down into the organization so that even in smaller teams, you're encouraging leaders to be more like a coach and less like a manager?
I talked about 3 areas: hiring right, train right, and manage right.
Yeah.
The manage right is about coaching. The manage right is about, so technology helps, and the amount of automation we've done in the last 9 months is more than what we've done in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And we train our trainers to become coaches. We train our trainers to encourage. You're required most when somebody is down and not when they're high. A lot of times we eliminate versus include. And therefore, it starts right from team leaders. And again, Mark, what happens is in our industry, there's a lot of focus on the masters that actually produce operations because they affect the client right away. There is a reasonable amount of focus on the top leadership, and I will take some credit for that. There's a reasonable amount of effort on the top 100 positions, but what about between the 101 to the 1,000? And I think
that's really what I'm thinking about. Yep.
But that's an area that we are penetrating. So a lot more being done on through virtual, but again, it's an area which I would find nascent and needs attention.
Good. Okay. And Amit, your thoughts on the coaching subject?
Sure, Mark. So let me bring in a different perspective altogether, what we are trying to understand. So I think the whole aspect of leadership coaching has undergoing a big change. And the reason I'm saying that is, and it's a different perspective to bring on the table, is that the starting assumption for making organization and people more resilient for the future and make them fit for the future is to first, we have to understand and assume as leaders that none of the crises that we have experienced in the past will reappear in a similar manner in future. That's the first fundamental understanding that we need to have clarity in the organization before we get into any kind of leadership coaching from our past experiences and picking up those wisdoms. So there's no point in practicing and preparing for responses to specific catastrophes. You know, people try to predict the future as a psychological tool to deal with the present crisis. But I think the scenario planning is a much better way of looking at the future. And this is where I think leadership can play a big role. While linear prediction of future is too simplistic, but I think leadership needs to proactively engage the organization and co-create in this scenario building process, understand the challenges and implications for each of these scenarios. And we need to co-create workflows with the employees, with the workforce, re-engineer their roles, new productivity matrices with the right infusion of technology in mind, and then create a collaborative environment to build that resilience and future fitness for the organization. So, as I said before, when the economy recovers from the current crisis, one thing is certain, that things won't return to the normal. So whether we call it a new normal, whether we call it a new abnormal, a different mode of leadership will have to emerge out of this new environment. And the new environment will be of environment of urgency, high stakes, uncertainty, more than the current. So I think the leadership as coaches, if I have to call it as leadership coaching for the organization, they have to foster adaptation, help people to develop next practices for the new world of business, while they also continue with the best fit practices necessary for current success, which picks up the past insights from the past failures or past successes. At the same time, I think what is more critical for the leadership to do is to embrace a kind of, make the organization embrace a kind of a disequilibrium, which will keep people in a state that creates enough discomfort to induce the change, but not so much that they give up. We need to encourage more of creative disruptions by allowing employees at all levels to experiment and develop a culture to celebrate failures, if that provides learning and insights. So I think future leaders, I think they have to demonstrate more of tenacity during volatility, provide virtual empowerment. They need to demonstrate decisional agility, at the same time, high degree of emotional resilience. So this is what I'm talking about as a new perspective that I want to bring on table to your question, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much. That's an interesting and different perspective. We have about 6 minutes, I think, left. Am I right? So Rajesh, just quickly from you, a thought on coaching, and then I want to come back and ask each of you just to comment to the people who are coming in the next session. What is industry expecting of academia to enable people to be more employable in the future? So just think about that and I'll come back to you. Rajesh, could you turn your camera down a bit? Half your face is hidden. And I've had a few, that's about, yep. So very quickly, your thoughts on the coaching subject?
Right. Yeah. Mr. Das actually nicely described about the coaching in the current environment, right? See, we always talk that, change is constant, but change is not only constant, it is sometimes sudden. I mean, with the pandemic, we could experience that change is sudden. You need to be very, fast and you need to be actually very resilient and adaptable to embrace the change. Yes, as Mr. Das told, in this kind of environment, you need to be adaptable, you need to be resilient, and you need to be, very fast and your decision making should be, fast, right? So, and you need to be very courageous also, and pragmatic, and so that you can survive and you can find a way to survive in this environment. So yes, our leadership coaching should be focused on these aspects. That's it.
Thanks very much. Okay, so just quickly in the last few minutes, I'll go around in the reverse order then. Amit first. Your thoughts on the sort of qualities that you're looking for out of the education system, because we talked about, it's not so much about skills, but other things that you're looking for. So perhaps you could touch on that quickly.
Sure. So the way I look at it is, Mark, that the education is a passport for the future, and tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for today. So it's becoming increasingly critical that students not only learn, but more importantly, learn how to learn. So education must move to less towards content and more towards learning about how to think critically and solve those problems, how to be creative and multidisciplinary, and how to innovate, adapt, and absorb new learnings. So I'm sure all of us have been hearing about this war for talent for quite some time now, which basically means that there's a huge demand and supply gap of industry-ready talent.
Yeah.
For a long time, the Indian education system, for example, was being questioned for its lack of effectiveness, and business leaders struggle to find job-ready talent, and still we do. And job seekers grappled at the same time to find the right job where their skills match the demand. So in today's business world, I think the need for behavioral competencies like resilience, agility, innovativeness, adaptability, this should hopefully get imparted to the learning ecosystem in the higher education institutes.
Yep, that's great. Thank you. Anthony, your thoughts on the same subject?
Yeah, I'm going to start with something controversial, which is you can have a certificate and a degree and still not be educated. At the same time, you can be educated and not have a degree and a certificate. And I think that's crucial. And our certificates and degrees starts with the process of elimination. We have 1 billion people, 20,000 people applying for one position. And the only way you get there is you start with elimination and you get back there. So if I were to address the academia, which Saloni also referred to in the previous with the previous panel, which is there's a lot of focus already on what people do in the library and on the laptop. And that is essential. So that should not be eliminated. But I think educators should look at how much of time are people spending on the playground? How much of time are they spending on engaging with other people on outdoor activities, on organizing events, which means running around away from your seat. How much of time are you spending on helping others? How much of time are people spending on collaboration and teamwork beyond yourself? And are we imparting that as part of an educative culture? And are we imparting that as a part of habits that people are developing? So a combination of both will help us to get into applying the knowledge, being the problem solvers, and seeking out help. And I'm going to repeat what I said earlier, knowing when to jump in and knowing when to get out of the way.
And those are very interesting thoughts to how to incorporate that into the education system. So take that as a challenge. Rajesh, last words from you.
Yes. See, we always talk there is a gap between academics and industry. Yes, there is a gap. Say we belong to this electrical or the power sector, right? And say we manufacture heavy equipment like power transformer. So we find there is a huge gap in their syllabus because we manufacture very high rating transformer, and whereas because we recruit all the core engineer like from electrical, mechanical, and the civil background. 60% say electrical, 30% mechanical, and 10% civil engineer for our side, right? So their syllabus is not fulfilling even about 10% of the requirement. What the transformer we manufacture. So probably because the syllabus is 30 years, 40 years old, which we are carrying on for last 30, 40 years, and there is no change in the syllabus. So even academicians should have an interface with the industry, and they should also try to change that syllabus also. Not only we talk about soft skill as other aspect, even they need to change that with the basic course subject, which is we feel, which is we experience, right? And apart from that, when we talk about the industry academia interface, so then we talk that people from the industry should visit and interact with the student, give them lecture and all. That is fine. That is required, but it should be both way. Even professor need to visit the industry. They should come and see our technology. They teach this electrical engineers what they really require. So not only student and the say industry people interact, academician, professor, or the administrator, they should also have a close interaction with the industry. They come, visit, see what is the required. And this I'm talking about the core subject, right? And then when we move, how people become effective on the workforce. Definitely we all they need to have certain, soft skill. This communication is a very basic skill, but yes, that is very important. Then we have interpersonal skill, problem solving skill, analytical skill, decision making. These are all very important. There should be some, even when a student comes to us, they have this quality, but they don't know what is this actually. Sometimes they have not even heard. These are the skills, right? So this kind of awareness need to be increased, and this should be part of their syllabus also, curriculum also. And then certain characteristics they need to be taught, which is very important to be successful at the workplace. Like we are talking about the adaptability, which is very important. Even a small thing, being devoted or have concentration, because some of the job like design engineer, everybody, all engineers, they have a dream to join the design department. But when they join us, sometimes we find them not suitable, not because of their technical ability, because design required, you need to do calculation, then you need to draft, then you need to make the drawing. So it takes time. So you need to concentrate, right? So these kind of awareness, this kind of characteristics, they need to develop. Then they only can become ready for work. So what we do when we hire this graduate engineer from the campus, so we have 3 months classroom training to them. So all the department heads, they come and they teach them, right? So we make them orient. So what is expected from them? So what kind of role what kind of role each and every department play? So that helps them. So if something they are taught at their university, this is going to help. Is what
Thank you very much.
share. Yeah.
Thank you, Rajesh. So that brings us to the end of the panel. So what we've tried to do is to capture a picture of how industry is responding to the forces at work. I think it's clear that the pandemic has accelerated thinking about the future of work, and each of the panelists has described that. It's clear that in different ways, these organizations are embracing technology to make better decisions faster and with better outcomes. And hopefully the academia that are coming next have heard some clear messages about the behavioral qualities rather than the skills that are going to be critical to enable people to be more employable in the future. So sorry for going over a bit of time, but that brings us to the end of the panel. So thank you, panelists. Really appreciate your inputs on this.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
So much to all the panelists. We in our institutes have to be very mindful, and we have taken our notes well from this session. And some of the terms which have really floated all around us during the last year. We were talking about resilience. We were talking about, Sir just mentioned about anti-fragility, agility, and adaptability. So I think we all have a lot of takeaways from this session, and many of the leaders, educational institutions are being led by such people. And I think what I have experienced in this whole phase where COVID just struck, it was a curveball and we just were caught unawares, we realized that the leadership took care of us beautifully. So there was a lot of compassion and there was a lot of creativity while we were handling each other's, challenges that COVID brought us, because there were personal challenges, social challenges, and n number of these. And despite that, we were working. So I think the leaders of the educational institutions have done things beautifully. Before I bring in the next panel, I just thought that since there some of the panelists mentioned that even the faculty members should be, included in the projects and should visit the industry. It is my request on behalf of the academia that do allow internships and live projects in big numbers. If really we all are putting in that effort, we want these live projects, and so that the gap is addressed. And let me tell you that some of the organizations have done that for us, and we have live projects in I'm a communication faculty. We do these report writing assignments with the industry, and eventually there were some business plans during which students participated. So there were such opportunities, but we want them magnified. We want more of these. So thank you so much for setting the context for the next session. And I think we are ready with the speakers and everyone has joined in. So I'm very fond of these forums. I can't tell you with each person's deliberations how much I'm growing right now and how much I'm aware of what I need to do as a teacher. So those who have made me who I am are the people who are joining the session next. May I start the next session on exploring future of education and work, and here comes the academic leaders panel. This session on leadership from the educational institution is going to be moderated by Mr. Dev Bhattacharya, Group Executive President, Aditya Birla Group. And joining in this session, we have some of the luminaries who have great examples to share. Dr. Bhima Rai, Director, IIM Nagpur. Dr. Harivansh Chaturvedi, Director, BIMTECH, Greater Noida. Dr. T.R.K. Rao, Chancellor, ICFA University, and Dr. Anita Patankar, Director, Symbiosis School for Liberal Arts. Before I hand over the session to the moderator, I take the privilege to let you know the compelling personality that is going to moderate now. He has over 28 years of rich experience encompassing manufacturing, finance, software, and media industries, and he's successfully been an entrepreneur. He has been an into consulting. And Mr. Bhattacharya, he's a mechanical engineer himself, and he did industrial engineering after that. Imagine the kind of input he would have brought in the education scenario with that kind of a background. He joined Aditya Birla Group in 1996 as Vice President, Corporate Strategy and Business Development, and he has played a pivotal role in acquisitions and joint ventures. I'm waiting to get more examples from them. Over to you, Mr. Dev Bhattacharya.
Thank you very much, Saloni. Very grateful for this opportunity to moderate this very eminent panel. And I must say, I feel severely undereducated in this quartet of 4 PhDs, and they are academicians, and I'm not, but I'm a user of what comes out of academics. And therefore, I'll probably have much more of a user-oriented question in most of the things that we will discuss today. Firstly, thank you for getting this panel together. And I wanted to set a little bit of context before we start. And the format we will follow is, I'll invite each of the panelists to come and speak for 5 minutes, focusing on 2 major issues that they think are what have emerged in the last year or thereabouts. And we have seen seminal changes in the last 2 years. And after those 5 minutes of time given to each speaker, I'll then moderate some questions or direct some questions to each of the panelists. And depending on the answer, etc., there will be follow-up questions, etc. And I will, in fact, also invite panelists to ask questions of the questions if they feel that further discussion is required. So it'll be an open, sort of moderated session after about 20-25 minutes. And we will also be happy to take, I don't know if you have the facility to take some questions from the audience, and I'd be very happy to take those if you'd like to put your questions on the chat box. We will try and take some of those as well if time permits. You've got 45 minutes, and we will start it now. To set the context, what has happened in the last year or thereabouts? And 2 things which I think are seminal changes. One is, of course, all of us are surrounded by this new phenomenon that has overtaken our lives. And it has also led to significant changes in everything we do and the way we do it, whether at the workplace, at home, at this academia, or anywhere else for that matter. And secondly, and also concomitantly, what has happened is the world of digital has got a revolutionary kick upwards. And thereafter, thereby, it has changed the way we look at work, the way we look at studies, the way we look at interacting with each other. And while social media was a good thing to have, a digital enterprise or a digital driven enterprise was a nice thing to talk about. It is now an absolute reality. And that is staring everyone in the face, especially in the top management, who always needed a printout of a fax or a printout of an email to actually read and sign and send it back to be scanned and sent. And that world has changed to where you have to have real-time information. You can have real-time information about, the CEO can have information about what happened to that particular machine yesterday. And that's the nature of the beast that we are handling. And as we go higher up the hierarchy, we find this difficulty of being able to internalize and assimilate the world of digital far more than people down the line. So that's one. The second is that there has been a new education policy, which has promised to transform the way academia prepares its students for the world outside. And the world outside is waiting with bated breath. And some people say, don't hold your breath for too long. But I think while there will be some time that will be required to deliver what is promised, but nevertheless, the promise is very promising. And we will dwell a little bit on that, how the academics think about this. And thirdly, an issue that I worry about a lot is that when we are working on our global companies and their programs and their innovations and things like that, we find that even in a company where 100%, almost 100% of the employees in India are Indians, and about 95% of the employees in overseas companies are non-Indians. In the US and Canada, and in a couple of other countries in Europe, in the senior management, there are a large number of Indians. And you wouldn't be surprised. That is the truth in most of the Western world. And if you compare the average number of patents filed from our companies overseas as opposed to our companies in India, the ratio is 10:1. Actually, it is 12:1. And why does that happen? And why is it that the same Indians who have graduated of IITs or passed out of IIMs thereafter or whatever, and go and work overseas, they suddenly become involved in this activity called innovation and generating patterns for themselves and their companies. But when they're working in India, none of that happens. What is this? Why is this? Will the NEP address any of this? So this is my sort of background, and against which I have requested the panelists to pick up the points each on which they would like to really stress, and some of the follow-up questions will come from there. I will start with the only lady on my panel, Dr. Anita Patankar, a very outspoken and very eloquent teacher and professor and director of Symbiosis. And I will request her to start with her pitch, 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me and I'm at Liberal Arts College passionate teacher onto a panel which has luminaries from the more postgraduate tech management professional qualifications sector. But I'm happy to be here because honestly speaking, I think we needed to have this conversation for a very long time. I think the NEP has pushed us into it, and I'm happy. Let me go directly into my 2 points because I have only 5 minutes. I'll address 2 points that I think are important to me. One is related to the NEP. One is related to the pandemic and what it did to us. And let me start with the pandemic. I think one thing that all faculty realized is that we were not prepared. We were not prepared as academic administrators. We were not prepared as faculty. We were not prepared for what the world threw at us. Some of us managed to transition well, though painful, faculty working 24/7, the home and the workplace, invading cases. Some are still struggling. I spoke to Dev yesterday about the fact that at some point of time, not at this forum, but at some point of time, we need to talk about equity and access. And these are issues that I don't think higher education, administrators and teachers spend enough time talking to, because the pandemic also showed us this, that while some of us were privileged to have devices and software, so many across the country didn't. But what it did tell us is we were unprepared. We had known this. It wasn't rocket science. The writing literally was on the wall for a very long time. So we knew that we needed to make a shift. We needed to get into virtual and online. We needed to get into blended and hybrid. And today we have been forced to do that. And I'm happy that a large number of faculty are now talking about this as well, that even when we go back to the supposedly normal before the pandemic, we would like to do this. I think the government has also focused a lot on this through the Swayam and Diksha and all of that. So the first thing is we weren't prepared. The second thing is the NEP also talks about a multidisciplinarity and they use the word liberal arts as well. Coming from a liberal arts philosophy since 2003, let me say, I wish industry understood that their recruitment policies guide parental choice very strongly. Parents across India and many countries will ask, job kahan milega, kitna paisa milega, what's the package? It tears my heart. Education and package have become synonymous, but that's the reality. So therefore, While it's nice and I felt really happy that industry was talking about adaptability and let's behavioral abilities, problem solving, cultural adjustment. They will have to factor these very strongly into their different policies. Multidisciplinary doesn't make sense if it doesn't become transdisciplinary, if you can't make the connections. If you're just doing it as an add-on, it worries me. Of course, as far as the NEP is concerned, it's going to be a bigger challenge in terms of training faculty to do this, implementation, but I'm just happy they've started it. For me, the two things I think that we need to focus on in this panel is what are we educating our citizens for? It's a modern time development that education is equal to a job. It never was. Today, education has become what kind of a job do you have? And the problem is then, where are the jobs? What kind of jobs? If everybody is going to have to change their careers at least 6, 7, 8 times across their lifetime, then what are you planning for? What are you training for? Then you have to train people in educational programs. You have to educate them to have the skills that are not going to become obsolete. So the skills of working with multicultural, multifunctional groups, system thinking, design thinking, AI, machine learning, all realities now. These are some of the challenges in front of us, and I'm excited to be on this panel and hope to get some more time later on to talk. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you, Anita. Those are good points. I like that privilege versus the non-privilege, that divide which is magnified in this digital or this pandemic situation. And of course, the importance of understanding what transdisciplinary really means. Great points. Thank you. May I now request Dr. Rao to make his 2-point driven pitch, please. Dr. TRK Rao. Dr. Rao, you're on mute.
Unmute.
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dev. I will confine myself to point 2 and 3 of your initial presentation. That is the national education policy, and then third is about our Indians working abroad and getting more patents there in those companies rather than India. Okay, national education policy has thrown the door wide open and tried to address the question of autonomy, multicultural learning, etc. in its voluminous report. Now, what are we looking at? I, as a chancellor of one university, I keep asking the questions, am I preparing the students for the future, both for industry and to the country? Here, as the earlier panelist from the Symbiosis has said, I think the services sector has to some extent played havoc with our educational policy, in the sense that everybody is now going to what kind of package, what kind of software industry. And in that process, the basic sciences this country was teaching earlier, it has taken a severe hit. That is the mathematics, physics, and chemistry. There are no takers virtually for these sciences. And if you look at the countries where Nobel Prizes and all the achievements in galore came, there the basic sciences were very strong. So we need to look at how to develop these basic sciences. Yes, that there are no job opportunities for people who study pure mathematics, pure physics, pure chemistry, PhD, except teaching, and the national laboratories may not absorb. But can we, the universities, tie up with the industry and ask them to sponsor some courses in the basic sciences? See, there are philanthropies, because I had the privilege of meeting late TSR Subramaniam, who was our cabinet secretary and later on chancellor for Shivanada's university, who was my friend earlier from his time in Lucknow. And once I talked to him, I said, sir, when you are having basic sciences in Shivanada University, don't you think the revenues, you will get it? He said, no, it is very clear that we have some deep pockets, and as a CSR, we will develop basic sciences. So I think some of the private universities earmark some budget towards CSR to incentivize students to join this basic sciences. And the corporate should set up laboratories and other infrastructure as a sponsored CSR program, so that as together, both industry and the academia have a responsibility to develop these basic sciences, develop bring out very good students, researchers who will commit themselves to do basic sciences. And these basic sciences lead to enrichment of applied sciences and applied research. That's where you get the patents, you get achievements, you get industry, whatever you want. So we need to have this, we need to strengthen this nexus. Today, the nexus is very weak because everybody goes to some MCA, BCA, MBA, then get into some marketing or related computer job as a programmer, slowly rises, we do not know. But you need to have basic science people. Now, what's happening? Those people, if you look, those who are in IITs, who have done MS and went abroad, they have joined Google, 3M and other places, and they have got so many patents. When I went in one of my visits to US, I went to Minneapolis to a company called 3M. There one Indian scientist had 36 patents. I asked him, you could have done that in India. He said, where is the opportunity? I came here because the company supported me. But he came with his knowledge and skill set, worked there. So similarly, if the industry also should realize the importance and work with some universities and sponsor certain infrastructure. You leave the state government universities, their budgets are hardly enough to meet the salaries and pensions. State government universities may not think, except few centers of learning like Indian Institute of Science and IITs, where the budgets are more. Run-of-the-mill state-funded universities in different state capitals, those glorious days have gone. Once upon a time, Andhra University, Tamil Nadu, Madras University, all those people produce laureates, but now that situation is not there. But the private universities have entered with some corpus, with some revenues. So the private universities can earmark some funds towards incentivizing the students in the form of fellowship and fees. The basic infrastructure required for doing research can be sponsored by industry in these private universities. Then the nexus, if you start the work now, that nexus will develop. That nexus will be strengthened. This is one aspect I should say. Automatically, the second thing is, are we creating environment and ecosystem for the industry to do these things? Are we doing it? We have to look at that. For example, everybody will say industry is not supporting. Okay, industry will start a huge R&D function, but where are the correct students who will, or correct people, correct scientists who will further this support this industry? We don't have. So it is all the more necessary for the academia to produce the kind of top drawer stuff to feed the industry. The industry in turn will absorb them, and that's how the research will develop, and you will have more and more patents, and the country's economic progress will move forward. This is my submission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. Great points made. Are we preparing students for industry? And there you're placing the ball very squarely in the box for academia. That are we sensitive to what the industry really needs, and are we producing those? And if we think, and the other point that you made is, of course, mathematics and basic sciences. And I must say, I agree with you totally on this, and we will take it up later in the discussion, and maybe some personal commitments that I'll make from Aditya Birla Group, what we will do as far as the renewable business is concerned. And I have the ability to probably understand what exactly you were saying. And I think that's of great value. With that, we will go to our next panelist, and I'll request Dr. Harivansh Chaturvedi, Director BIMTECH. You're on mute, Dr. Chaturvedi. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Dev Bhattacharya, who is the session chair and moderator for this panel. I'm delighted to be co-panelist with my friend, Dr. Bhimraya Maitre, Dr. T.R.K. Rao, Chancellor of ICFA University, Jharkhand, Dr. Anita Patankar, heading the Liberal Arts College of Symbiosis University. I would like to just take a future scenario building for next 5 years in higher education. and it is based on not only the directions given by the National Education Policy, but it is also to be decided by how fastly Indian industries will be embracing the disruptive technologies and Industry 4.0. I'm also taking up the political and social factors which will deeply influence the implementation of the national education policy. First and foremost, I would like to tell that the national education policy has taken 30 years to take shape in our country, which is so huge and full of complexities. And last time when it was framed in 1986, it has taken around 6-7 years for implementation. So it is not easy. Whatever global and national aspirations have been outlined by Dr. Kasturi Rangan Committee and approved by the Union Cabinet, I think there will be big challenges for its implementation. And I would like to quote that one of the prominent educationist, Mr. Deepak Nayyar, who has been Vice Chancellor of Delhi University, he has written a beautiful article in Indian Express on August 13th, 2020. And it was titled National Education Policy 2020, The Devil Lies in Implementation. So I think implementation, I think first of all, it is necessary that the government, both central government and state governments, they should join hands, because education is under the concurrent list of Indian Constitution. The central government cannot solely decide everything and leave it to the state governments to implement. You may be knowing very well that implementation of the 7th Pay Commission or 6th Pay Commission, always state governments are asking and pressing the union government to give the additional funding for implementation of new pay scales. So I would like to say that last time when 1986 or first time in 1968, when Kothari Commission came to decide the education policy, they have suggested that unless 6% of GNP is not spent on education, no radical or useful reforms can happen. Now India is looking towards big changes which can be created by the educational reforms, particularly higher education reforms. So far, only 26% of our young population is enrolled in universities and colleges. New education policy has set a target that within next 10 years, this should go up to 50%. It means the number of students will be almost doubled. For additional 100% means an additional 400 million students, there will be huge requirement of funds. I think it is estimated around 1 lakh crore per annum. Unless we have this kind of commitment from central government and state governments, the national education policy targets will not be implementable. And lastly, I would like to say that the disruptive technologies will also determine what kind of jobs will be available in 2025. And it is said that globally, 85 billion jobs will vanish. In India, also it is going to happen that all the repetitive jobs will be given to robots and it will be absorbed by automation. So I think this forum should decide, and this forum should discuss further that how the future of education and future of work can be synthesized and harmonized by taking all the stakeholders on the same platform. Concluding, I would like to say that education should be as a top priority, topmost priority, similar to health. We have ignored health as a top priority. We suffered a lot during pandemic. Similarly, our young population is very impatient. They are looking for that they should get a decent life and decent job, because this is a globalized world. They are seeing good life on television screens all the time. They want a decent job in their hands. If our education system, if our government and society cannot give them employability, I think there will be a lot of social upheavals. So this is my submission that it should be given top priority, and government should commit funds for implementing reforms in education, both at school level and higher education level. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chaturvedi. A very impassioned plea for understanding the implications of the education policy and what it entails for all of us, mainly for academia and also for industry to understand how to create the expectation out of academia which will deliver if it can be supported adequately by appropriate funding, and also the fact that there has to be a greater amount of collaboration between the state and center for it to be more effective. Thank you. And my final panelist, the entrepreneur, Dr. Bhimra Maitre. I call him entrepreneur because he's the startup scientist in starting new IIMs. And the latest one is IIM Nagpur. And so I welcome him as the last but not least panelist.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Dev Bhattacharya, a Group Executive President, Aditya Birla Group, and my co-panelist, Professor Chaturvedi, Director BIMTECH, and Dr. T.R.K. Rao, Chancellor, ICFA University, Jharkhand, Dr. Anita Patankar, Director, Symbiosis School of Liberal Arts, and all the distinguished participants, and Mr. Rahul, who is the Managing Director of InnoServ Group. So first of all, I thank the ASMA for bringing this important topic and the forum. All the fellow panelists talked about both the aspect NEP as well as what are the changes required in the corporate world and education sector. So I'll be focusing on two aspects. One is how the corporate world is changing and how we prepare our students to take up the challenges of the corporate world. So to begin with, Nelson Mandela's quote, he said, education is the biggest weapon to change the world. So keeping that in mind, so if you look at how to lead the business in this fluid world, I use the term fluid world. So fluid is a short form. The first F stands for future is fluid. Second word of the fluid, L stands for leadership is fluid, because whether leaders will change or not, leadership style has to change because the context is changing. Third word, U stands for uncertainty context. Context is uncertain, and that is where the changes are going to come. And I of the fluid stands for intellectual capital, that is workforce is fluid. So lifelong learning, skilling, reskilling, upskilling, learning, unlearning, relearning are going to be the way. Perpetual learners are going to be the leaders. And that is where this intellectual capital I stands. The last and most important D, that stands, that D is a digital strategy. Strategy is also going to be fluid. It is an emergent strategy. A 10-year, 20-year, 30-year strategy is not going to work out. So these are the 5 words. In a panel, we are 5 members, including our moderator. So these 5 words are going to impact the globe. And that is how, instead of digital, too much digital we are used, but now a fluid economy is going to play an important role. Now in this, out of the 5 words, I am going to take up this topic is opt for the HR and higher education. So I am going to focus on intellectual capital. So all of you know that today we are moving from industry era to intelligence era. So intelligence era, everything is invisible, intangible, but giving the great result. Intelligence and industrial era, we have seen everything is tangible. Size plays an important role in industry era, but in intelligence era, speed has taken over the size. So speed is going to play important role. Speed of change is going to play important role. And all of you know that now we are living in the age of big data, in which we have the capacity to collect the huge sum of information and which cannot be evaluated, assessed by the the human being. So the importance of intellectual capital is basically adaptive talent. The skills, those who are exclusively for the human being, they are the creativity, curiosity, leadership, enthusiasm, empathy, and compassion. So they are going to make a difference in this complex world. Rest all repetitive jobs, as Professor Chaturvedi ji rightly said, they are all going to be taken by the robots, the AI. AI is going to save the world. AI is going to change the corporate world. So that is why it is extremely important that artificial intelligence is shaping the talent of the competitiveness of the global economy. So in this context, so HR and education, if you think, then I must say that we have to rethink of learning. And new education policy already, it is a gold standard. It talked about learning to learn. That is an important focus, main focus. And fundamental principle of new education policy is, a central principle is people and planet, profit in the last. People and planet in the first. So that is the focus of new education policy. So it is going to totally transform, 100% transform the education sector. So keeping these things in mind, what is happening in the corporate world, if you look into that, three important principal types of changes are happening in the corporate world, and Deo Bhattacharya knows better than anybody else. He is from the the core of the industry, and he knows better than us. But these are the three things. One is, companies are transforming their organization learning goals. Learning goals are shifting the focus from development of skill to the development of mindset and capabilities. So that is one important change in the corporate world. So basically, development of mindset and capabilities that will help the workers to perform well now and adapt for the future. Number two, change. Companies are transforming their organization learning methods. Learning methods are changing, and they are more of experimental and immediate. Not the standard one, experimental and immediate. And third important change happening in the corporate world in learning space, HR spaces, they are transforming their organization learning departments. So making them learner, more agile, and also more strategic. Not today, but it is for the future. So these are the three changes happening in the corporate world. To align this corporate world, how B schools should prepare, and that is what the question is. Imagining the B schools of future. B schools of future are going to be the more towards digital universities. So to align the corporate world, we have to focus on three things. Number one, concentrate on capabilities, not only on competencies. You know that when probably Bhattacharya Sahab, myself and Chaturvedi Sahab, all the panelists, we were studying, our focus to go to university was to gain the knowledge. But maybe next came, not only knowledge is sufficient, it is now available with Google. Next came, it is a competency, and most of the people in the second generation, after our generation, they are focusing on competency. But what today our students are tomorrow's students, now it is not sufficient, the knowledge and the competency, now it is important, they have to focus on capabilities. To take up the unborn jobs of the unknown companies. And that purpose, the focus is on capability, not only knowledge and competency. Number two, emphasis should be on digital thinking. The new generation capabilities, they are going to be the vital skills of the fluid world. So if you look at the Singapore-based DBS Bank, world's best bank to build future-ready enterprise, under the leadership of Piyush Gupta, Group CEO of DBS Bank, it has total digital transformation and giving the best of the best result, but nobody knows where the DBS Bank is located. So education universities are also going to be a digital universities and giving the best result in this intelligence era. Third important to do this, whatever the 1 and 2 we talked about, third important strategy for business school is they have to focus on phenomena based learning. a situational based learning. They should be thrown into the situation, a group of students guided by the group of professors in different functions areas of management, a psychology, a strategy, a information system faculty, operational faculty, and communication faculty, together guiding students to how to handle that situation. That is called as a phenomena based learning. And Finland is the one one country, they are highly focusing on phenomena based learning in their country. I think the rest of the world will follow this. And another way is a project based learning, so that we can build the mindset, we can shape their mindset so that they can take up the unknown jobs and in unknown companies with entirely new skills. And that is what going to be the future world. And if you want to give me the simple one or two examples of my institute, I am Nagpur, it is a new institute. What we did to build this kind of capabilities, we introduced the field project. 2 weeks students basically connect with the companies from Aurangabad, Nasik and Pune, and 2 weeks physically go there, they learn and create awareness and what is happening they see and they explore themselves. Then second, international immersion program. So I am Nagpur students go to Korea, they go to Japan, they go to Singapore, they go to Dubai, and they get a global exposure and cross-cultural understanding and shape their minds and also compare themselves with the multinationalities, working in those countries. That is the second aspect. Third, a business thought leadership series. People like Dev Bhattacharya, accomplished professional, such people coming and addressing students. They themselves are the women libraries. They come and share their stories. So this is how we can shape the mindset. And the third and the last one is, we focus on, since I am Nagpur is the one IIM which is located a multi-product special economic zone. It is the first of its kind in the country and which is located Nagpur. All of you know it is a center of gravity of India. It is a heartland of India. It is located, and our institute is located in the heart of the 80 and odd companies. So जैसे बोलते हैं बिजनेस मेडिकल कॉलेज जो या हॉस्पिटल के बीच में होना चाहिए, जैसा बिजनेस के बीच में बिजनेस स्कूल होना चाहिए. So I am Nagpur is within the heart of the businesses, 80 and odd companies. So we are, and industry people are, we are putting them into the classroom and they are developing a mindset to take up the jobs of the future. That is what happening at IIM Nagpur. With this, I stop over here. Thank you very much. Thanks for all the panelists and our moderator chair, Dev Bhattacharya. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Dev sir, you're on mute. You're on mute, Dev sir.
I'm so sorry. My apologies. I'm supposed to be taking care of this. So, but thank you very much, Dr. Maitri, for very incisive points made on artificial intelligence, which is going to be transformatory, and entering the intelligence era from the industrial era. And of course, organizations needing to redefine their learning goals. And of course, digital thinking, that's the requirement for the new generation and therefore the transformation required in academia and industry. I will use this to segue into the first part of our discussion, which is going to be on Industry 4.0, and that is how this digital transformation is in fact going to change and should change the way academia thinks about industry and industry expectations from academia. I'll request Dr. Chaturvedi, if I may, to give us the first shot on what you think this transformation requires.
Sir, unmute. Chaturvedi sir, unmute, please.
So I think without providing necessary infrastructure for digitalization of education as well as implementing the concepts related to Industry 4.0, we cannot achieve anything. So the universities and colleges are required to develop necessary infrastructure. They have to digitize their operations. They have to further develop the blended learning mode. It was an emergency shift from traditional lecture method to online method. So I think if we have to ensure that our students, after passing out from universities and colleges, they get decent, good jobs analytical jobs, creative jobs in the industry, they need to be trained about applying the concepts of Industry 4.0 in their studies as well as in their future vocations. And for that, we will require a lot of IT infrastructure and also a lot of retraining of teachers. So far, even the normal infrastructure, which is laptop, computer labs, etc., are not available. Majority of public institutions, university and colleges, where except the elite institutions, universities and colleges funded by central government or by a private group, I think this is a issue of digital divide. So let there be no digital divide in our country, which can create further widening of inequalities, that we will have digital haves and digital have-nots after 5 years or 10 years, and then we repent and formulate another policy or invest funds for providing this digital equipment in the hands of the young people from the poor families. So I would like to say that implementation of Industry 4.0 National Education Policy will much depend upon how we are going to upgrade the infrastructures available for software as well as the hardware in our universities and colleges.
Thank you, Dr. Chaturvedi. The question that emerges from this is, we do a lot of work with institutions in developing new capabilities, new technologies, etc. And recently, I had the opportunity to work with Dr. Ramachandran on the basis of, those of you who have not read his book, Amazon Management Practices, I urge you to read it. It's a fabulous book on how Amazon actually integrated digital learning right from Jeff Bezos all the way down to the front salesperson. And it's an amazing transformation. And they actually do not give, if you look at the Amazon site, for instance, Amazon app, you'll find that it's not the Amazon products which are the Amazon's recommended bestseller, because they let their own products, their own brands, their own store brands, etc., compete on an equal footing with all outside brands. And everybody is allowed to give feedback exactly the way it is. You do not moderate, do not change anything. And what is the theory that Amazon uses? It uses a theory that if you have got frontline sales managers, treat them as the customer's voice. What does that mean? That means he will stand outside with a customer and criticize you, which includes himself, of course. But that is the nature of change that is going to happen, because everything is about transparency. It's about reaching the same message, reaching from bottom to top, across the divide, through the divide, and within the divide. And this is a very interesting thing, that I have to reach out to universities in the US to get the right kind of connectivity to do the algorithmic work that we are trying to do, algorithmic problem solving, etc. And which also refers to Dr. Rao's talk about, do we have mathematical capabilities? We don't. I don't get that in IITs. I don't get there definitely in other IIMs for sure. So we have to reach out to other universities. So my question to Dr. Mehri, where do you think and how do you think we develop these capabilities within our institutions, within our institutions in India, to be able to provide this cutting edge capabilities? Where do you get the skill set amongst your academics to be able to do this? And I'll come to the other panelists as well. But first, Dr. Mehri, please, on this.
Thank you very much, Bhattacharya. I think new education policy has given this opportunity for all the institutions in the country to go for multidisciplinary approach. So multidisciplinary approach, it is basically a T-learning. So one area, for example, in IIM, students are going to be having a specialized knowledge in one area, and they also having to they are going to have opportunity to learn in different areas. So that is one area specialization. Other areas they will be having a broad knowledge. So I can give the best example of Singapore Management University, SMU. So they have School of Economics, School of Social Science, School of Decision Science, School of marketing, and School of Strategy, or School of Entrepreneurship. So each one of them will give MS or 1-year degree in entrepreneurship, digital marketing and economics and all, and the entire school of management, Singapore Management University, they come out with a degree of MBA. That is a flagship program of the institute, and all others the verticals, one specialization and general knowledge. So this is the way Singapore Management University has come up. Our new education policy also recommends this kind of knowledge. The best example in India, if you, I think I can give always, is the BITS Pilani. BITS Pilani is the one, students from biology can specialize in computer science and he can get the job in best of the best companies.
Right.
So they will do few core courses and rest all Janta courses from various departments. A very great integration of different departments, cross-functional, courses. That example is BITS Pilani, and new education policy now it is going to give that opportunity for IIT, IIM and every institutions, and we are going to get that, whether it is a mathematics or science or computer science or even biology, pharma, all integration. And BITS is the best example where I worked for 5 years, and that is already there, and new education policy has suggested. I am sure this is going to close this gap, whatever the gap currently what you found out, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Maitre. That's very useful. I'll then request Dr. Patankar, Anita Patankar. You have done a lot of this transdisciplinary stuff in Symbiosis, and I want you to talk about what are the results that you've seen and how does industry accept that?
Before, can I just quickly answer the previous question that you asked?
Sure.
Linking it to the Amazon, and then that links to my liberal arts program as well. That Amazon does this, and that you needed to go to another country to find these capabilities, is not just linked to the kind of program structures and curricular structures that we have. It also has a lot to do with the culture with which we learn and the culture with which we teach. I think as a country, we need to now start investing in creating an ecosystem that encourages, not just allows, because allows indicates a hierarchy in the classroom, encourages students and faculty to question theories, to question why does this happen in psychology, but yet it's used in business. I think the ability to use your mind in ways that are not mine is also one of why patents, and that question that you asked about why the patents, the numbers, so not so healthy in India as compared to many, many other countries. And I think this requires a paradigm shift in the way we look at education, the way we train faculty. The most obedient student is not, as a director, when I walk in my college, and if the halls are quiet, I am scared. If I pass a classroom and I can only hear the teacher's voice, I am worried, because I think that quiet silence is not a good thing if you've got minds at work. So I think it's not just about introducing subjects, but it's also about the way, see, what we learn and how we learn is important. So the how, why, what, this is really important. At the School for Liberal Arts, and at any, actually across the globe, I know about my school, the concept and the philosophy of a liberal arts college, everyone may not be able to run a liberal arts program, but the liberal arts philosophy can definitely be run across programs. And by even just a teacher, what does it say? It says a couple of things. Number one, that single domain specialization is inadequate. And I think the change that's taking place in the world has proven this. The fact that jobs are becoming obsolete, technology is becoming obsolete, and the average 40-year-old or 50-year-old today has already changed careers. Some happily, but most unhappily. There are very few examples. We talk about the successful stories. We don't talk about the 90% that struggled. So number one, that multidisciplinarity, and more than multidisciplinarity, because multidisciplinarity only means you're studying a couple of things. Trans is when they're interwoven. When in my law class, my law teacher is able to bring in philosophy and ethics and dilemmas linked to, let's say, biology, cloning, and therefore what kind of laws do you need? So transdisciplinary, interwoven through the entire program. So whether you're studying English or whether you're studying maths or whether you're studying computer studies,
that you have teachers who are trained and assessments that are geared to make you think in that way. Your learning resources need to be like this. So number one is transdisciplinary. Number two is, what's the philosophy? What's the culture of the place? And the culture of the place needs to be, you're here to learn. We are going to teach you metacognition skills. You will learn how you learn. You will learn what to learn. You will learn how not to be afraid of an uncertain environment. In fact, you will be thrilled with it because it's an opportunity. You will not be afraid to fail. You will not be afraid to make mistakes. So I think the culture of why students are learning, because if you tell them that the goal is getting that job, how many people are going to do it with passion and how many people are actually going to learn? Then it's about the GPA. You want people to say, you know what, forget about the first job. I want to learn for a lifetime. This is my foundation for the rest of my life. And for that, you need to change even our processes. When I talk to parents, I tell them, I don't give placement. I don't. Everybody else might be, but I'm not, because that's not my job. My job is to help your child learn, understand what's happening in the world, connect the dots. If something happened, if a butterfly fluttered its wings over there, then why did this happen over here? So this is the second thing. I think the NEP is ambitious. And I think as my previous esteemed panelist said, you know, the devil is in the details and it's going to take a lot of time, but I think we've started well. I think what industry needs to do is industry needs to say, and sorry for my words, you know, put their money where their mouth is, saying that we will hire 30% of people this year who have these kind of skills. Because honestly speaking, you can teach theory and you can teach tech. It's much easier. It's very expensive. Someone quoted how much, you know, some companies are spending in terms of $800 billion, etc. You can spend all that money and you will teach people technology and you will teach them skills. How easy is it to teach people how to think? How easy is it to teach people attitude? How to get rid of cultural bias? That is easier when you're in that, you know, school and higher education phase. So we need to be supported for that, and industry needs to be supported for that. And ultimately, industry will have to say, you're not just creating graduates for my jobs. I mean, we're not a production facility. We're not one of your, you know, vendors or suppliers who's supplying you with people. We are one of your partners. And you are creating products for a better world, because if the world doesn't exist, then companies aren't going to exist either. So therefore, I think it needs to be equals meeting together, both of us, academics as well as industry, working together for a better world where people are employable, where people are safe, you know, where diversity thrives. We heard President Biden's speech yesterday. It resonates with all of us, isn't it? So therefore, that's the kind of world. And I think we need to start thinking, with due apologies to my industry partners, we need to start looking at ourselves as just delivering what they want. I think we both need to work together to deliver what we all need. Thank you.
Thank you. Very powerful, Dr. Patankar. Very impassioned and powerful. I weighed on each of your words and I've noted them down. Thank you. So that brings me to Dr. Rao. Dr. Rao, so I'm moving on to you. You have made the case for basic sciences getting recognition and appropriate support from industry. Can you tell us how this is going to happen? How can this be interwoven into the multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary concept that Anita talked about? And I think there is a need for this understanding. And industry, even when I represent industry, I don't quite understand. How do you present this to us? How does it make a saleable proposition? How do you really do it?
Thank you, Dev, for hitting the nail on the head. I look at this from a point of view, I'm somewhat afraid that as a country, we are very comfortable after reaching a knowledge plateau. Some frontiers are fixed and we continue to operate our education, our research, our applied research, our consultancy, everything is within the broad frontier. There was, as a country, we have not expanded the frontier. We have not moved further. We are still there. So what's happening is that, okay, somebody has taken, I mean, at a macro level, somebody takes a PhD, he gets off the learning curve. He said, I got a PhD. Now I'll only teach or I'll do. But what about the further research? How many people who have finished PhD are going to postdoctoral? How many postdoctorals have come to patent level? How many postdoctorals have achieved the levels of achievement? That we are not questioning. You know, now the national new education policy is giving a multidisciplinary approach, but still the at macro level, the frontiers are limited. So we have three dimensions. One is the knowledge dimension, one is the application dimension, one is the execution dimension. While knowledge dimension, the basic sciences, if you achieve, you will get more and you will extend the frontiers of knowledge of the country in every field. Then application, you are giving more space for the applied sciences to operate and get more research, more consultancies, more applied research products, which are needed for industry. The industry in turn benefits from this knowledge and has new products, new processes, and then obviously you will continue to, you become more global rather than more national. This is what is happening. So we have to look at that. What is now preventing us from becoming a global? How many companies have become global? No, because the frontiers are limited. We are operating within these frontiers. So this is my industry. That's why as my fellow panelists from Symbiosis has said, there has to be a meeting point between the industry and education, which I think Milton long ago said in the lecture idea of the university, the town and the gown should meet. That means both the industry and the academy should meet to work together. So if industry can sponsor certain courses into the select universities which have strong credentials of delivery and also assure job opportunities for the products that the people come out, then obviously there'll be confidence levels, mutually confidence levels, CBM, confidence building measures will take place. People will be incentivized to take courses with job assurance. After all, finally, he needs to have 2 meals a day. And when he gets a job, he continues to work, and we must encourage that. And we should not allow, people should always, I believe that people should always be on the learning curve, even if you are ahead of the curve. Because today you think you are ahead of the curve, but tomorrow you are not. The curve will overtake you. So you have to be on the learning curve. And this curve, this philosophy needs to be inculcated into every education institution and also in the industry research. And we can then persuade the industry captains to encourage research and development in each of the companies. Those and both under CSR or other this can sponsor a plethora of courses that are required for the country as envisaged in the national education policy. And we'll have more and more people who will be research oriented, application oriented, and development oriented, execution oriented. This is a broad picture I'm thinking. This is how the marriage take place.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. That was very clear and articulate. And I take some lessons out of that. We have come really to the end of our stuff, but I will give you half a minute each. So 2 lines takeaway for all the participants here from each of our panelists. 2 lines takeaway. What would you like the audience to take away with them? So I'll start with Dr. Chaturvedi, if you may, please.
Modern India can take shape only when education is given top priority and it is oriented towards catering to the needs of the industry as well as the government.
Thank you very much. Dr. Patankar? You're on, right.
I think that whether it's the corporate sector, whether it's government, whether it's the social sector, civil society, or whether a student wants to become an entrepreneur, I think one thing is clear that the most important set of skills that students are going to require to be successful, and for the companies that they work with and the organizations that they work with to be successful, are a couple of things. Number one is the ability to work with people, even people that we don't like, even people that we don't get along with, people with totally divergent views, to get along and to be able to work wonderfully and seamlessly with people from different backgrounds, different functional areas and training, matrix, cutting across geographies, groups. These are the kind of fluid organizational structures that companies, governments, etc. are looking at. And I think more importantly, the ability to enjoy learning the skills that are needed at that time. Today, it's about digital literacy and it's about digital skills. Tomorrow, it's going to be something else. Huge societal expectations and accountability, from society and from government and from everyone. And I think at some point of time, we are going to have to start looking at our relationship with industry, government, and all these sectors to create flexible programs so that students are able to customize. So I think what organizations like Levi's, etc., designed a long time ago, the ability to customize, mass customization, I think those are also things that we will have to now start experimenting with in education, and we can do that with passionate people from the sector who see that this is the way ahead, especially in countries like India, which are highly diverse with very, very diverse student cohorts. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. Badankar. Over to you, Dr. Maitre.
Yeah, so I think I have to say 3 R's. So reimagine, redesign, and rebuild the higher education as per the NEP to lead the fluid corporate world and to build New India.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And final word, Dr. Rao.
The knowledge is dynamic. So also application of knowledge becomes dynamic. Research becomes dynamic. Then from this flows, the industry becomes dynamic if it has to survive, because it is dictated both by knowledge and markets are dynamic. So we are virtually living in a dynamic world. So there is no question of resting on your laurels, either as an individual or as an industry or as an academician or as an institution or as a country. If you start resting, you are in an irrelevant plateau and things will overtake you. So the best way is to always be on the learning curve till you rest in peace. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, Dr. Rao. Thank you very much. This has been an absolutely energizing panel and very articulate and impassioned panel. Thank you very much for all the inputs. I'm sure everybody has benefited from this. Me certainly. Thank you, and over to Rahul Jain.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dev. Thank you, Dev.
Thank you.
Professor Saloni.
Yeah, surely. So once again, I'm delighted to be listening to all of you. And I just hit upon an article which came in the Hindu in May this year, May 2020. It was written by Mr. Arun Maira. And he was talking about pathway to a resilient economy. And the last 2 paragraphs were something that I thought was most relevant. And I thought that would summarize the takeaways of the session, particularly because there were questions raised on the role of business houses. And there were the business side, is asking the industry, the education industry to do certain things. So I'll read out that line because I thought that was the most relevant way that I could bring out the essence of this session. I'll keep it quick. So the first important line that really resonated right away was that there has to be a 20th century paradigm change in the way businesses think. So the business of business must not be only business anymore. So like Mr. Rao, as well as Dr. Rao, as well as Dr. Anita mentioned, that, we all have to bring in a lot of CSR, etc., and build certain domains of education and basic sciences and other kinds of things. And the other important part, which I thought will actually summarize our session well, is, Mr. Mara wrote a book, Redesigning the Airplane While Flying, Reforming Institutions. I think each one of us must read this book. And he says in this article, because we are accountable to the economy, the redesign of economies, of businesses, and our lives must begin with questions about purpose. What is the purpose of economic growth? What is the purpose of businesses and other institutions? What is the purpose of our lives? What needs and whose needs do institutions and each of us fulfill by our existence? I think what we have just done is we have asked each one of us to answer the questions that are being raised and take accountability of that and be ready to have those answers which we're looking for. And like Dr. Anita also said, customized. So we have to listen well. I think I wish it never ended, but I have to invite Rahul now to conclude the session, and ever grateful for this forum. Please, Rahul, take over from there.
Thank you so much, Saloni, for giving me this opportunity to place the vote of thanks. I'm glad that I could put this forum together. Since the beginning of the session today, I'm awestruck with the knowledge and the wisdom that I'm gaining from all the eminent speakers, starting with our own chairman, Mr. Gopalakrishnan Ramachandran. I'm thankful to him for his time today to address this important gathering. I further take this opportunity to thank Dr. Ganesh Natarajan and Dr. Uma Natarajan for being the force behind this special event. For the first time at ASMA, we brought the stalwarts from both academia and industry together to talk about a very timed talking point on future of work. Future of work being, the situation where I think there is phenomenal dynamicity, and we all discussed the way things are evolving. A very special thanks to Dr. Krishnan from IIM Bangalore and Dr. Maitri from IIM Nagpur. I'm really honored to have both of them today on this particular session, and even Dr. Maitri has been extending his patronage for years together. Sir, I'm really, really thankful to you for your blessings, mentoring, guidance, everything. You have always helped us take the next initiative, sir. I'm indebted to all the HR leaders, Mark Jankelson, Shri Dev Bhattacharya ji, Shri Amit Das sir, Shri Anthony Joseph ji, and Shri Rakesh Kumar Sinha ji for deep industry insights and suggestions on how academia can build the future workforce. The knowledge and the insights specifically were very, very valuable today. I'm honored to thank my, I would say my, Godfather Shri Harivansh Chaturvedi ji, without whom I think ASMA couldn't have been where it is today, sir. You were the first person who said, Rahul, you move and we will all be behind. And 7 years of this journey and see where we are, sir. And it's awesome to have every important person who has spoken at ASMA forum, in last 5 years specifically, since the time we started our physical, conferences. I think we never look back. So thank you so much, sir, for all your patronage all this while, sir. I'm thankful to Dr. T.R.K. Rao Sahab, Dr. Anita Patankar Madam, Mr. Sridhar Shukla, Miss Deepa Rachel, Miss Pratham Sutaria for their industry insights. At the same time, we learned a lot, together through the session today. I'm thankful to Professor Saloni Sinha. I'm sure, we remember our first conference together in 2017. So I think the warmth continues. You kept the session tightly, integrated, and you were amazing throughout the event, Saloni. Thank you. Last but not the least, I'm thankful to FMA Digital, Orai Robotics, Digital HR, and GTT for their constant support on various ASMA initiatives. And before I close, I would like to mention our team led by Chandan Anand, VP Communities, who is the force behind this whole InnoServ communities, and we are really growing, and we are taking more and more steps. Very important thanks to all the audience. They have been patient, and I still see a constant attendance throughout the event. That's a big achievement. I would request all the audience as well as eminent speakers present here to please suggest us what more we should continue to do in order to derive value from the community that is now 100,000 plus. So it's a big community that we have. We are coming up with a lot of initiatives. We need content, we need contributions, we need support from the community at large. So that's an appeal from me. we can expect ASMA to do much more. We need little more hands from all the patrons here. Thank you so much. Over to you, Saloni ji.
Thank you. As I said, I wish this never ended, but unfortunately we have to conclude so that we can, like Rahul said, plan something new, something big, something more relevant, something more valuable for the entire fraternity, and such a wonderful session where all the stakeholders are together working towards a good workforce, and we all want, it that way. So I think it has just concluded with a strong determination and commitment. So I thought that, a quote again sums it up beautifully before we say a bye to each other. Education is not to reform students or amuse them or to make them expert technicians. It is to unsettle their minds, widen their horizons, inflame their intellects, and teach them to think. And together we can, and together we should. Take care, everyone, and have a wonderful time until we meet next. ASMA, Higher Education, and HR Forum. This was a leadership forum, nurturing more and more leaders in future. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you.